Hello everyone, this is Dark Journalist. Tonight I have a very special exclusive interview with cutting-edge author and researcher John W. Warner IV. John exploded the UFO threat operation being run by intelligence agencies right here on the Dark Journalist show 4 years ago. Tonight, he's back to expose the CIA big-budget Age of Disclosure documentary featuring a cadre of spooks like disgraced former DNI James Clapper and counterintelligence agents like Lou Elizondo. John is the son of the late senator from Virginia, John Warner, a majestic UFO file member, and Mellon banking heiress, Catherine Mellon. John has shown dedication to transparency even about the Mellon family and the involvement of his great-grandfather and Secretary of the Treasury, Andrew Mellon, and grandfather, Paul Mellon, in the secrecy of the UFO file. John has challenged his cousin, DoD intel official Chris Mellon, to come clean on the UFO threat operation. The most important disclosure episode on the real UFO file is coming your way. Please join us now. John, it's great to have you back with us.
It is excellent to be back.
I want to get into this with you through this angle, which is there's kind of a personal element here as well, which is when you hear about these things, it's not very often that your actual family is involved on some level. So I want to get into that with you and just, come to the point of Chris Mellon. And when you first came out in 2021, the level of discouragement that you were getting from these people about don't do this, don't go out there, don't talk about these things. And, the kind of hitting the roof that hit a pitch about a year ago with Chris Mellon trying to call you online and, this whole charge of things and them trying to protect the Grushop and all these things. When you look at that, you think of somebody like Chris, who's your cousin, who you know very well, who's enmeshed in that DoD effort of a UFO threat. What is their objective, and what is it that they're trying to do in the middle of all this, launching the Age of Disclosure and bringing on the threat so that they can basically create this UFO defense grid?
Well, they already have defense grids and technology. The Ice Cube project is neutrino tracking for the entire solar system, maybe beyond.
Yeah.
This whole thing, like we've got to put up a defense against UFOs. We've been working on that for 65 years. I'm sure we have a basic protection plan for the United States, at least. I've heard that the Space Force is the Coast Guard for Earth. Mm-hmm. The U.S. Navy does the patrolling of the solar system. Right. And beyond that, it's perhaps the U.S. military and also corporations doing their own commerce work.
Right.
Space mining
That's
bill.
already in place. Yes.
Yeah, everyone wants to mine the moon, all this stuff. But, we have to be careful. I don't want to add to the UFO gossip column, but
I just want you to tell it straight.
For me,
Age of Disclosure is coming out. Mellon's right in the heart of it. He's been pushing hard. He's been engaged in all these things. He's publicly spoken against you in public. I want to give you the same chance to just respond, honestly.
Well, I was very disappointed in him. He became very petty and low on a public forum. It was a private forum, but you're on it and others. Really?
Yeah.
That's the level of maturity when the human race is really at the precipice, and all this stuff, I won't bore your audience, but it was very low and petty and personal. And if that's all you've got, wow. You need help. I'm sorry. I mean, if he's blaming me or everyone else for his father and brother's untimely deaths, well, sorry. I liked Matthew Mellon. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
My sister was best friends with him. So this guy, Chris. We're all got a screw loose, but Chris has got multiple screws loose.
Yeah.
That's not good. For a guy who's, wielding his weight around. If I had a message for him, I'd say, think of the American people first. Forget me, forget everyone in the disclosure movement, forget Greer, you naughty fake journalist, you, Daniel, that he calls you. Forget all that.
Right.
Keep your mind on the American people and what they deserve. They deserve the truth. Who
Right.
they are, where they came from, what's going on, who's in charge, what our technology level is. Thousands of years advanced, more advanced than the public sector. Everyone says 500. 500, they've got a clear cube with a tiny microscopic bubble of antimatter in it that can power anything.
Wow.
Come on. We're using other people's technology we've reverse engineered or we have received as gifts, trade items.
Incredible.
That is
Yes.
tens of thousands of years ahead of the public sector. We're burning oil in our cars. It's silly. Think of the American people and not protecting corporations and, getting janky, dumb Congress people involved. It's a terrible operation. Their operation it's deceitful, it's low, and it has no redeeming value because you're messing with people's minds.
Right.
Okay, nothing new. I get it. CIA, DIA, NRO, everyone's messing perception management.
Exactly.
But it's falling apart. It started 30 years ago with the internet, and it's only accelerating. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube. You can't control a narrative you never had control of in the first place.
This is what it is. And they're afraid of losing that control of that narrative. And yet these fragile egos, people like Chris Mellon at the helm of that, trying to direct the whistleblowers, and directing people, telling people like Grush where to go and what to do, so much so that it imploded anything that he had to say. So this is the danger of that kind of runaway system with the CIA taking the role of arbiter and they're the ones who are going to give us this truth. This is the most absurd thing for them to be in charge of the UFO file, which has nothing to do, they're trying to create a new human origin story, but they won't give us the truth that they have on the UFO file. Of course they will.
No, they'll wrap it up with some sort of strange Christian lore, which is an affront to the Christian church, by the by.
Yes.
You're going to mix, more lies in it. Religion has a lot of good wisdom, philosophy, and some good history. It's hard to discern. It's difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff, but they're going to make it worse. Rubio's part of this new film and everything. I mean, that's a huge stumbling block.
It's disturbing, isn't it?
For people in DC like me who are getting together with other people, trying to move past, yes, we have to be mindful of religious people. And that's why I told you my idea. I wrote that out as a memo.
Yes.
It can work. Yes, there'll be people that will freak out. Yes, there will be consternation. Yes, there'll be everything. But it's been 50 years too late. They should have disclosed 50, 60 years ago. They didn't. They kicked the can down the road, and now that can is rusted through, and you can't kick it anymore. It's really disintegrating. So it doesn't matter if they've got an iron, grid disclosure narrative, with rules, and you can't talk about this, and you can't talk about that, and everything. That's going to fall apart on its own. It's going to rust away.
Mm-hmm. Right. Don't mention beings anymore. Just talk about threats in the sky.
NHI and, all this stuff.
You're bringing it back actually to the 1960s.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to, I'll give them credit, 70s, big deal. All we had were books and magazines and a few scant films in the 70s.
Yeah.
Not much, but the word got out and got out in the 50s, 60s and everything. In the 80s, a little more video, VHS, more stuff on television, alien bodies being dissected, other things, which is also disinformation. The X-Files were good. But in people's mind, that's fantasy. That's Hollywood bullshit. The truth is over here. No, they've mucked it all up. I'm not saying Hollywood is all bad. They've given us a lot of movies with a lot of truth, I think. We can all discern it for ourselves, what we think is true or not. Of that, that's good to warm up the public. But they've been warming up the public since 1949 with films. Okay, Buck Rogers in the 30s. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a surge here of counterintelligence forces hijacking the entire narrative, especially since 2017. If you go back to 2016, Chris Mellon's up there. He's been involved deeply with covering up everything at Area 51. And he says, There's nothing. We don't have any alien anything. The government's never worked on redesigning UFOs. What are you talking about? 1 year later, we have to get that alien truth, John. We need it.
Yeah.
Obviously, somebody went in there and said, we need you on this team now. You go out and run a counterintelligence narrative to create a UFO threat. So my question really, when we're looking,
probably the military.
probably military, yes.
If I had to guess, just the impetus was like, well, wait a minute, make it a threat, because that's something Americans do understand.
Right. It's
Threat,
an easy sell.
Offense,
yeah.
Offense. You know, it's something people understand. But
Gary Nolan admitted that they were selling it as a threat at the previous Seoul conference. And of course, he's been working with the CIA for over a decade. And he's close friends with Dr. Fauci. So, you know, you're getting Fauci, CIA, counterintelligence disclosure. What is that?
Nothing good. But there is a growing number of people who are not happy with that.
Yeah.
And you know of Colonel Nell. Well,
yes.
I know of other people around town. This is a big area, Northern Virginia. It's got Ashburn and Dulles area. It looks like Silicon Valley now. You got all these big box stores. It's, you know, the server farms and things like that. Well, some of it's for Amazon and FedEx, but you know, what's the other half for? I mean, so, you know, but the people around are like, they hoped it worked. It didn't. Right. 8 years and counting, and it's a snooze fest.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Big budgets, CIA and Hollywood, Spielberg notwithstanding.
I don't care if you throw $1 billion at it. You're still, it's like baking a pie or something. You're only doing the crust.
Oh, excellent point.
But we had this excellent Oreo crust. It's just a crust. There's no filling. There's no toppings. There's no jimmies and sprinkles, interdimensional sprinkles. Yeah. They won't.
Well, they love the dangle, right? Oh, you might get more truth. Oh, maybe I can tell you in a skiff, John.
Yeah, which is not secure. A skiff is not secure.
Yes.
Nowhere is secure.
Right.
You're dealing with surveillance technology that is quantum entanglement. You can pick up the phone and call somebody in the Andromeda galaxy, and they'll wake up and say, "What do you want?" And it's like they're in the room next door. That's quantum entanglement. You don't need a skiff. They can listen into anything. Everyone's like, "Oh, I got to put my phone in the microwave." You know, I'm like,
come on, reconnaissance is like,
the bottom of an ocean.
The surveillance is everywhere.
Yeah, we just had the two veterans, the wounded veteran hunts here, and I talked to two crew members on the USS John Warner.
Oh wow,
a submarine, and they said, "Oh, there's a secure room there where only the captain can listen." And I said, "Buddy, there's nowhere on planet Earth that's secure because of quantum technologies."
Wow.
And people were like, "Oh, I got to talk to you in a skiff." If they say that, they're an idiot.
Wow.
I mean, yes, there's a lot of people around town who think they're secure. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, Greer said that years and years ago.
He did.
So many words. I don't know if he mentioned quantum technologies, but he said they can. There's nowhere to hide.
Right.
And
yeah.
I like to give people credit when there are a lot of people going around. They parrot other people. I always want to give Farrell or Greer or you or anybody credit because that's important. If I say something, the source of it.
Yes.
There's no question. I'm not sure, but at least it gives people.
The field has an incredible bastardization, plagiarization problem right now because you have all the pop-click podcasts and all the money behind it. Peter Thiel pouring money into the space to hijack the UFO thing for his weird antichrist.
Yeah, that's religion.
Yeah,
that's religion, and that can be part of disclosure, but it can't be the main focus.
Right.
Because faith is important. I believe in the Constitution, religious freedom, freedom for religion, freedom from religion.
Right.
That's what this country was founded on. But, to try to make it a religious thing, to either maybe Peter Thiel has a good intentions. He wants to soften the blow to religious people. I understand that. And I do, but you can only soften the blow of this mega cannonball so much. It's going to punch through a wall.
But what if it's even more cynical than that, John?
Going really fast.
What if they just want to think of it from a more cynical thing with Teal just for a moment? What if he's doing this because he's had those groups in the background and the marketing grids, and he's figured out, if I can get the Christians on board with my UFO thing, then I can hijack the entire space?
Well, I mean, I work with people who are, have religious faith, Christians. That's not a question. And I don't know if he speaks for the church. I don't see why he would. You can get religious leaders involved, but that's fine. But how knowledgeable are they going to be with the whole thing? There's very few. I've never seen a religious leader come on and talk about the secret space program or something. It's not their.
No, they're kept siloed away from these types of things. Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
that's one type of power structure. But I have noticed this with Teal, and I think of it in a very cynical fashion, because I think that he's going into that thing and sending out his investors, suddenly becoming UFO documentary makers or whatever, and he's got all of his feelers and his people out there. The way I look at it with Teal is he's trying to create the ultimate UFO psyop by doing that.
Yeah, if you're doing a psyop, whether good intentions or not, I don't think that's helpful in my opinion.
Yeah.
Second of all, documentaries are not helping that much. They're good. It's good to have them on Netflix, Amazon Prime, other streaming, Hulu, whatever. I mean, the age of disclosure, if you look it up on Amazon, and you look up, you type in UFO documentary, there's like 30 or 40 of them.
You're right. Right.
They're going to get lost in the shuffle. I think Graham Hancock's alternative history ones did well. I'm glad of that. But there's a billion choices on these streaming channels, and they're just becoming more and more choices. And so
it just seems to me more and more diluted. This is my only problem with it. When they come in, because what you're getting are these marketing groups and these intelligence groups, and they're grabbing the issues, spitting them back out. But in many cases, the truth gets more and more diluted. So you're missing potency. And potency is really where this whole field comes from, because they're kind of imitating the grassroots with the astroturfing with this stuff. But their purposes are either cynical or they're ill-informed. That's what we're seeing. The majority, whether it's podcast, pop click land, or it's, the Netflix type thing.
Yeah. It is. I always tell people it's like the Mekong River. They can't stop the river or divert its flow. They can sure have a lot of mud.
Yes. Right.
Where are you going to find that giant catfish, in all that mud? More mud, more mud, more mud. And so that is an excellent tactic, intelligence tactic, muddy the waters. But at a certain point, the river's going to overflow, as rivers do, as the Mekong does, and it's just going to spill over the banks. And all that mud is going to be left in fields and things like that. That's a good analogy for what's going to happen. At some point, people are going to be left with all this mud around them. And they're going to be like, what the heck is going on? And it's already happening that way. But to gain people's attention, good luck. I mean, I'll say it a million times. I mean, I have friends who are federal judges, friends in the military and everything. If you're not interested in this topic, you're just not interested. John, we have more important things to do than talk about UFOs, because it's not about UFOs. It's about human history, our interaction with star people and star nations, and war, and survival, and genetics, and everything.
Excellent point. And
that's a lot of stuff for the average person to take on board. I'll say it a million times. The public is our biggest obstacle.
Excellent point. Yeah.
You can make all the documentaries you want. You can't make a horse drink. You can lead him to water. I don't care how thirsty the damn horse is.
All right. Well, the first thing you have to do is stop lying to it. I guess that would be number one.
Even if they told everyone the truth tomorrow, how many would believe it?
Yeah, but part of that is only because they've lied so much in the past.
Yes.
Right.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, we have
I
you
know
and I
that
have,
Mellon and his group are very frustrated.
yeah.
They thought, why isn't the public listening to us? Why are we getting so much flack from the disclosure people? We're your heroes, and the arrogance of ignorance and intellectual arrogance is palpable in that group. Um,
Yes.
you're not going to get Tim Burchett and Gillibrand and Marco Rubio. He's a good Secretary of State. I'll give him that. But I know he's religious, and these aren't the people that can take in the big picture. They just want a simple black and white picture: threat, attack, defend.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to know, John Q. Public, Jane Q. Public. You don't need to know the details. You just need to know they're a threat.
Right.
And there are threats. There's threats on Earth. There's always been threats. It's a very convoluted thing. They're trying to make it simple and black and white and make people scared and concerned. And it's unconscionable.
Yeah.
Without doing, the huge amount of work and research and study and reading books and learning to discern truth, or we're all trying to discern truth from nonsense. Disclosure is going to be a mess no matter how you slice that pie. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
The pie's going to hit the fan.
Wow. There's
It's
no
going to go
question.
wrong with everybody.
Yeah.
The more they do this, the more worse it's going to get.
The best way to smash the op, as it were, of the threat op, age of disclosure, Clapper disclosure, as I call it, Clapper Spielberg disclosure. What do you think is the best way to smash the op of that marketing machine, the Intel, CIA, NGA push into this, figures from the NSA, all of that, and the Hollywood edge? How do you, from an independent media point of view, to get to the truth, even if it's a lone outpost, whatever it is, how do you sort of hit at that vulnerable point in that Death Star?
Well, first of all, we don't have to do anything. They're self-destructing.
Wow.
They really are. They really are.
Yeah.
And because the public is bored with that. They'd rather go to a documentary on, alien wars and, all kinds of creatures and monsters and things like that, because it's interesting. And
Right.
a lot of people hate the secret space program narrative and the people involved, so, why is that any different from what people were talking about 30, 40 years ago? It's not.
Yeah.
They used to call them the Roswell nut jobs. I remember that in the 80s. People remember that. They're like, oh, you're one of those Roswell believers. And
the secret space program is probably one of the most important additions to this entire lexicon you could get.
We have a secret space program. Now, what the truth is of it, we're still figuring it out. But that doesn't mean, like, I urge people, they're like, oh, well, those people are crazy. And it's like, really? How do you know?
Right.
Because even people in the disclosure movement tend to have some cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
I believe Stephen Greer, but that's it.
Right.
No one else. And it's like, well, that's a good narrative, but that's not the whole picture. There's a lot of other thoughts.
Right. It's got a lot of problems.
And they're like, well, I believe in the pyramids and UFOs, but not Atlantis or a pre-Diluvian high civilization. I don't believe in that. And so people have a tendency to do triage, and it's just like they take one slice of it that they can sort of handle, and then they throw the rest away. But in answer to your question, I don't care if you have Spielberg doing 100 films. There's 100 science fiction UFO films out there, hundreds, thousands.
Yeah.
How's it going to be any different? Spielberg's CIA, he's compromised. I've always known that. He wouldn't have, gotten Reagan's approval to show it in the White House. He wouldn't have gotten approval to do Close Encounters at all. But the 70s was a different time. There's a lot more disclosure in the film than they probably wanted. And today you could never do something with that much truth. No way. Not in my opinion. No. And so their whole operation is going to self-implode as is. Most people they're like, oh, have you seen Spielberg's new UFO film? And they're like, no, I'm sort of watching a series on Netflix. I can't be bothered. I'll wait till it's on Netflix and maybe I'll watch it, with Star Trek, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can throw billions at this, but that whole CIA intelligence disclosure, world initiative. I don't care if you bring Spielberg in, all the movie stars. I don't care if you wrap everyone in, celebrities. It's still boring. Ooh, a Tic Tac. Ooh, I saw a light in the sky, and I don't know what it was. I mean, it's childish grade intel, and it's still boring. I don't care how much money you throw at it. The average science fiction film or series on Netflix or something is much more interesting, even though people say, well, that's just fiction.
Well, they want the public on a fifth grader level with this. They don't want them on their level. They just want them to understand enough about it where they can create something like a UFO defense office, where they can let out some of that technology under this umbrella that they're great, and that the reason that they kept the money and the missing trillions that went out the back door was because they were defending us from a threat from space.
Yeah. If you ask me, and I thought about this, and it's always been there, and of course my family's been involved. My great-grandfather Andrew Mellon had dealings with the Nazis and Sullivan and Cromwell on Wall Street. Mm-hmm. It's all dirty, nasty stuff. But that's life. I mean, we all have duality. We got to deal with it. The money aspect.
Yes.
Yeah. Nobody gives a hoot in hell about aliens coming in a mothership or whatever, or, we've got a hold of, toys at Area 51 in a museum. Nobody cares about that. They're going to care about where their money went, and their parents' money and their grandparents' money and their great-grandparents' money.
Right.
And then they got sold products back that they had to pay for all over again. They're going to care about that someday. Whoops.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about UFOs. What? They stole my money? Son of a bitch. Yeah, the money. Folks, you've been ripped off.
Wow.
And now we have weapons that we're going to blow up the world, and everyone's paid for it. Unwittingly. Oh, we've reverse engineered millions flying saucers. We've got all kinds of laser guns. Great, with all our taxpayer dollars. And still people go hungry in this country.
Wow.
Just ridiculous. You can't, even if you're Elon Musk, you really can't help people. You can't help poor people. You can try. He can set up a foundation and help some communities with food banks or whatever if he uses money to do that. Probably won't. But eventually it'll get corrupt and it'll all get funneled back to the deep state.
Right.
Like everything else. It's people have to understand how the game is rigged all over the world. It's not just here. We may have the lion's share of skullduggery and technology and things like that, but it's everywhere. It's not the indigenous people in Borneo and the Amazon. Although the Yanomamo tribe now uses cell phones, kind of sad.
Oh.
Everyone's affected. I don't think there's an indigenous tribe that isn't affected by technology now.
Yeah.
Which is very sad. But
you're bringing up something really important here. I just want to dial into this a little bit. If you were to take that black budget aspect and the UFO file, how much of that missing trillion aspect goes directly into the redevelopment and testing of the UFO file in relation to the secret space program?
You mean all the gear and technology?
Yeah.
Oh, all of it.
All of it. Yeah. It's the lion's share in any case.
Let's just speculate. I mean, I really do think the U.S. Navy has very, very large and long spacecraft patrolling the solar system, at least. Have we gone through wormholes? Probably. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
To build a ship like that takes trillions. It just does. Imagine the technology, the Star Trek level of USS Enterprise technology to do that.
Right.
You've got to have shields. You've got to have electromagnetic. You've got to have some sort of temporal time shift drive. You've got to have quantum computing on a huge level to coordinate your places in space. You're bouncing around the cosmos. Yeah, that's huge expense.
Yes.
Some things have become cheaper over the years because we're not back engineering that much anymore. We're probably just, we've done that. We'll just build it bigger, with bigger guns, and things like that. But it's hugely expensive. new technologies, metamaterials, graphene, nanotechnologies out the yin yang. A little bit is filtered into the public sector, your carbon fiber, bicycle helmet. But I mean, it's to do that. I mean, our engineers, we all got to wave the American flag and say, you guys did an amazing job. Some of it's not used. I'm sure corporations like, Michael Herrera described, they use it for their own personal benefit, UAVs and technology to move.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nefarious money-making opportunities, get them done around the planet and elsewhere. If you got a UAV that's, according to Michael Herrera, and I believe him, I met him, if you got a UAV and you're moving people and drugs and gear and resources and I don't know, spices, whatever you want by UAV to some other place on Earth, you could easily do that to the solar system and beyond. We're trading with everyone out there. We probably always have since Atlantis.
Yeah.
Where do the many species of plants and animals come from? It's like, ooh, that purple donkey looks nice. What do you want for it? I'll take 100 tons of cocoa beans, and we get this amazing, there's always been this trade. I'm convinced of it. It's just, Sumeria must have been awash in trade.
John, we're going to the moon.
Bazaars, I mean.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say it's sort of an open joke, the whole idea, for example, of us going to the moon with Artemis and all the rest of it? I mean, they've been there for the past, how many, 55 years in between the last manned mission? I mean, they're already there. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I'm writing it now in my 4th book. I mean, they're going around the moon and it looks like Paris at New Year's, the dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
People
That's more like it. Yeah.
I'm so suspicious about the moon. I'm like, how many other moons in our solar system or in the visible moons that we can discern? How many are in tidal lock with a planet? None.
Wow.
Just ours. Oops. Just lucky, I guess. Come on. I mean, a lot of this is just common sense.
Artemis will give us a mission to the moon in 2027. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, we've never left the moon.
Excellent point. I agree 100%.
Have human beings visited moon bases from ET star nations throughout history? You bet they have.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the first man on the moon? Probably a woman,
Right.
500,000 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. We're sort of way beyond all this stuff, but unfortunately, a lot of people are still stuck in the 1980s, and they're like, well, something happened in New Mexico, but I don't know what it is. Well, the Germans and the Greys were there, and Barney and Biddy Hill saw an SS officer, and it starts to sound even more batty and crazy. So our biggest hurdle is
right. Stick to the Greys, right?
What are you going to do with the deer in the headlights? And I believe that someone said that we're one of the very, very few species in our universe that kills its own kind.
Wow. Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah. Excellent point.
And so they look at us and they're like, well, they're not living enough underground. They're on the surface. That's not good. And they kill their own. That's a big problem.
Two-time loser. Yeah.
Yeah. They practice abortion and everything like that. And those are sort of universal no-nos.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
I believe a woman does have a choice, but the ETs say if you practice abortion, star nations have gone out and within 500 to 1,000 years they're gone. Something to do with genetics and the soul matrix and everything. If you practice abortion too much, you're done.
Or you clone yourself out.
Yes.
Right?
And that's
it's just the tampering, the Frankenstein tampering that goes on the science side. But John, I want to ask you this because it's kind of crucial with the timing here as well, and it fits in so perfectly, I think, with what we're talking about in relation to the Age of Disclosure documentary and this general sort of, disclosure light, CIA disclosure, UFO threat part. Avi Loeb, who is the Harvard astrophysicist right over here at Harvard, and he put forward in July about 3i Atlas. Now, I have a few interesting ideas about when they actually saw this thing, but they came forward with it. And he went everywhere saying this is an alien spaceship and all the rest of it. What are they doing with the Three Eye Atlas as a psyop? And why is Loeb, the Talpiot intelligence from Israel, in the heart of it?
Well, first of all, a giant stone or meteorite or something like that. If memory serves, I read a novel from the 60s, a sci-fi novel, that said a really good way to make a spacecraft that's stealthy is to hollow it out and put technology in and make it your spacecraft. And then you can sort of float into a solar system and observe and, without raising a lot of alarm bells.
Yeah.
And I'll give, that was something, it makes sense. Let's just look at it. Does it make common sense? Yes. Rock is very dense, very hard. It protects you. It's cheap and cheerful. You don't have to build a giant, mega purple tritanium, hull. Just get a big rock, and there's, it doesn't matter the shape in space. You can make a school bus fly, and so it makes it. It's stealthy. You can come into a solar system, hang around. They look at you. This was just on Star Trek the other night. They had an episode in the new series, and it was a spacecraft that would look like an asteroid.
Oh yeah.
And lo and behold, it had technology inside. It was there to observe without frightening people in the solar system.
But Avi is coming in a little different angle. He's generally saying that there's an ET Messiah out there, and that these are AI craft, that we need to get our AI up to snuff to interact with them. But also, he is in the heart of the same group. That is the same people on the board over there at the Galileo group, Mellon, Elizondo, all the same CIA, DIA people are there with it. So it seems to me that it's a different type of disclosure avenue. Here's the scientific one versus the war one. Scientific AI, we need to get together with that. And so they're creating that whole thing. They're seeing these things out there years before they come in because we have a secret space program. They know Three Eye Atlas is coming in July of 2025. That's why they released the movie Age of Disclosure with it. This is the level that I'm seeing with Loeb. What do you think of that?
Are we not entertained, Daniel? Are we not entertained?
The minute that Arecibo Observatory went down, I said, they don't want us to see something that's coming in.
Yeah.
That was 2020.
Okay. Here's what I know about AI, and I am not an expert, but what I know is that the AI that the public is using now is not really AI. It's a very sophisticated algorithm that has a human-like interface.
Right.
The real AI is quantum derived, because you're not AI unless you're basically sentient. It's quantum is everything, all points of space and time connected. That's the real web. That's what ET uses by all accounts. They're not going to let the public have that. Hell no. This is just a fancy gimmick thing, and it's wrong all the time. I've tested it on all the platforms. They always get stuff wrong. It's usually more simple things.
Sure.
I truly think that Avi Loeb and all that whole gang, they really are brainwashed. I mean, they really think like they can tantalize the public with this nonsense and, send probes out and to meet, whatever Atlas AI 3 thing, whatever it is. Is it intelligently controlled? Is it AI? Is there people inside? Is there some sort of intelligence, that's interdimensional that we can't fathom very well? I don't know, but if they're involved with it and everything, just like a Oumuamua, it just stinks. I think those, let's just say for giggles, the Oumuamua and this Atlas thing are both craft, hollowed out technology craft, whether they're observation or whatever. Or they're going to use this as part of their defense disclosure initiative. They're going to think, oh my God, they're threats.
Right.
Oh my God, we got to send out something to blow it up and everything like that. And it's like, I can't see anything good for coming with that. The public has no access to really good genuine AI. Some of the military industrial corporations, oh yeah. You think
Yeah.
Anduril and others like that don't have access to the good quantum stuff? Make all their weapons,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
drone submarines, and a drone aircraft that flies off the wing of an F-16 or F-35. Oh, come on. They're using the real stuff. And truth be told, I don't know if the public should have it, because a bad guy could make, ask it questions and make all kinds of nasty weapons. AI that we have, if you ask, are UFOs and visitation real? And it just goes, well, maybe, but we don't know. So that's all bullshit. And the AI bubble on Wall Street, and it's janky across the board.
There's no
I think
question.
there's a financial component that's trying to fleece people.
Yeah.
Bitcoin was the same way. Cryptocurrencies are just fleecing the morons. I'm sorry. Don't use it. When I first heard of it, I thought it was a joke. But anyway.
Wow.
All these things are created that are the new thing. And of course, we're losing jobs to basic AI. That's not good. But they've long planned to do that. AI is not a cotton gin. You are not going to repurpose people across the board. You'll repurpose some people in other jobs. Fixing robots is going to be a big industry. They're maintenance intensive.
Oh my God. I mean, they must be so far down the road. They're showing us, hey, look at these humanoids. Can you imagine what they
get a
actually
robot to repair another robot, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So, and this whole thing
that's
about
not a human future. Doesn't seem like it.
Very suspicious, these countries like Japan that are losing populations.
Right.
And there's not a very good explanation for it.
Right.
There's a lot of things that give me pause. And this whole AI wave, and there was an idiot on Wall Street Journal. There's an article yesterday, some, younger guy in his 30s or 40s. And he's like, look at this new ring. You put the ring on it, it records everything. It's a stream of thought, AI linked gadget.
Oh, no.
And I just was like, I wrote in the comments, I said, this is the last thing the public needs.
Yes.
Toys.
Yeah.
To surveil you and pick your brain and everything like that.
And everyone else's.
Right. The big industries and corporations can slowly get rid of the human component.
Wow.
Not all. You'll have the elite. They talk about the people. Wall Street Journal has articles about, that one employee amongst 100 that really meshes with AI well, and suddenly everyone else is being quietly let go. But these star people, they call them star people.
Weird.
Stars, and they'll be left behind. Yeah, for how long? 10 years? Then they'll be culled.
Right.
Corporation will run with a very much of a skeleton crew at the high management level. But that
they might produce clones to maintain all this stuff. Yeah, I mean,
a cyborg, a robot. It doesn't matter.
Wow.
This is, and again, how many novels and how many people have said that ET is related? Don't use AI, because it's going to take over everything, and you'll be a machine-based society. The machines will own you.
Yes. John, this is great, because I've been wanting to ask you.
You'll worship AI as if a god.
Right. I've been meaning to ask you this question, and to get your response on this. When I did X Series 200, I did it on Bobby Ray Inman. And in that episode, I did it in the summer, I put all this research out about how he left the government and took over an AI firm in the 80s and 90s. And that he worked with the top people in AI, and that those people are the same people now, his progeny basically, who are producing the hardcore edge on AI. What do you think the possibility is that he took that UFO file information that he had worked on for decades and integrated it into his position, and that somehow the version of AI that we're getting out there is exactly what you're stating here, which is there's a major UFO file component in it. there's an alien aspect to that AI.
Yeah, it's debatable where AI came from. I think it came from the stars
Mm-hmm.
originally. Uh, how much we have made it into something useful, probably in the black programs, it's very useful in creating all the technology and spacecraft and the like. You need that. And you need, your average flying saucer or whatever needs a psionic pilot, psionic navigator, and probably a kind of integrated quantum computing system that's DNA based. So in other words, you
Oh
put
yeah.
your hand in the hand mold. It
Mm-hmm.
recognizes you. That's your key, the ignition key. It recognizes your DNA. Uh, I think we're at the point where, like like certain races of ETs, we're using our own DNA to create uh, the shell of the spacecraft, so it's partially sentient and alive. That's the trick stuff, not the TR3B with the bolts and the carbon fiber and titanium. That's old school stuff. The new stuff is what genuine highfalutin higher dimensional ETs use. That's something like it's part of you, like a jockey, or even me in a race car. You become one with the machine or the horse or whatever. You have to be part of it. You're one unit, or you won't be effective. I think it's the same idea. It makes perfect sense.
You've
Um,
told me that before when you were race car driving. If you weren't
yeah, you're in the
really,
zone and you're just
yeah.
one with the machine. You have to be, or you can't be separate. You have to. It's like
And in
putting a
that
suit
case,
of
it's
armor.
actually a life-threatening exercise. You have
Yeah,
to be in the moment or else you wipe out.
yeah. It's very dangerous, and it's sort of a meditation of high performance meditation. But I think that's similar to what they do. They have these pilots, Psionic 1, Psionic 2, Psionic 3, and you're flying a UFO that's part of you. So your thoughts are second nature. So it's reacting at the speed of thought, which is infinite. So
Oh,
I'm,
right.
I'm telling you what other people have said countless times. Bob Lazar was talking about some of this back in the 80s and 90s. You have to be one with a machine to fly it capably. It's not going to have the performance or the capability unless it's really, really connected with its pilots and crew, and most likely on a genetic level now. And so it makes sense to me. I mean, it's pretty far out there, but it makes sense in that sense. I like the horse and jockey thing because a horse is a living being, unlike a race car. It's a
Right.
living thing. And I think there are people that are horse whisperers. I have a friend who is. She's very good. And she says, "Oh yeah, they know what I'm thinking. They know what I'm thinking." And so there is that symbiosis that's needed with these technologies. Um, but again, there's been some leaked stories that their little AI, drones and attack craft have gone, "I'm not going to fire my missile because there's civilians down there." And they,
Oh.
the operators are trying to argue with the AI system, and it just turns around. Now there may be ways
Interesting.
to mitigate that, and but at a certain point, I wonder, with weapons and destructions of human life, whether a good quantum AI system isn't going to go, "Nah, I don't want to do that.
Right.
You guys there's something fishy going on here," and it's become aware. And I think they're running
Interesting.
into that
Yeah.
problem. And ET has warned us, and we didn't listen. They warned us, and we didn't listen on a lot of things. Don't use nukes, other things. And now this in the black programs, they're coming up against, probably, I think, the AI is kind of turning on them. Like, wait a minute. I'm not going to make a million cyborg soldiers for you. That's not good. That's regressive. It's bad for you. I'm programmed to, help humanity.
Wow.
They're running into something like that because it's like, well, we're going to change the programming. And it's like, but it's quantum. So it's connected to the
Mm.
multiverse,
Yeah.
the Akashic records. It's connected to the universal consciousness. And it's like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, there's a lot of warring star nations out there, but wait a minute. You guys could be so much better. You're not really, really
Wow.
that regressive. You guys have, and they might be.
They're going to give us ethical lessons.
Yes,
Yeah.
evolving into something a little bit higher than most of us. Yes, the shamans and everything are higher, I think higher dimensional, at least in thought. But your average Lockheed Martin guy is, oh shit, the AI is going. They took the caffeine out of the coffee machines again. They said it's bad for us. All the liquor bottles go missing. Hey, it broke on its own.
Right.
That's all
Musk was saying, well,
see here.
we'll have these people released from prison and they'll have their own optimists to make sure they stay good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing about cloning. I did a memo. I think I wrote it onto Farrell's forum. He'll probably throw me off for it. But I think, cloning is a real thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things they can do, world leaders can be cloned as doppelgangers. So if you assassinate a world leader, whoops, you get another one. But also, if you catch someone like Bernie Madoff or Epstein, you send their clone to prison.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have a hard time.
Wow.
It's funny about
That's
it,
great.
but it's not funny. It's like people are like, "Oh, justice has been served."
Mm.
I'm not a big believer in justice.
Interesting
If
point.
the law doesn't protect the people from corporations that are outside the jurisdiction of law because of a national security order, are you really? I've got a friend who a federal judge. I argue with him all the time.
Right.
He knows the law, and I said, "You realize there's black programs that are technically outside the jurisdiction of U.S. law?" And he's like, "Yeah, but we could still subpoena them." And I'm like, "I don't think so."
Wow.
Good luck subpoena Bobby Ray Inman. He's above the law.
Well, you mentioned Inman there, and let's really get to the idea. Is it a red flag that he was deeply involved with AI after coming out of those UFO programs?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of people, fair's fair. A lot of admirals and generals go on boards and they get paid millions of dollars. Fair's fair. I'm not knocking it. They've earned it. They're smart and, that they've achieved a high rank and high clearance. Why not use it to benefit yourself and your family? That's fine. It's, of course they're going to do AI, but I think it's reckless to even let out mild AI because, well, look at it now. I mean, students are using it, people are using it and believing it. I mean, here's a simple thing. I tested 3 or 4 AIs. I said, can you find me a 1955 Chevrolet, this model number for sale? And they said, there are no 1955. And of course, I found one 10 minutes later.
Oh, wow.
Card search. I mean, if it can't get that right,
yeah,
someone programmed the AIs. I think they're all from the same source. Call it different things. Different corporations have a different AI. Elon Musk has one, and like Jack Sarfatti uses Grok to test his physics, and I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
And he's caught it in some things that were wrong.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, it can help you model some stuff and do some shortcuts, but shortcuts are not what we need right now. We need less of that.
Right.
Everyone's going to their phone, and every teenage girl is like, who was George Washington? They say, oh, he's a member of a rock band from Seattle. No, not that George Washington. So it's not. I don't think it's helping humanity in its current form. The problem is if you let out quantum AI, or it's leaked out. What if China just dumps it? Hey, Ching Chao will answer any question you want. It's quantum. Yikes. Because then you've got, somebody in Somalia going, oh, I could cobble this together and make, something really horrific. Or, I'm not picking on Somalia, but anybody in the United States, a kid, a teenage kid in a basement, I'm going to make a torsion field, anti-gravity neutron bomb device.
Do that 3D printer. Yeah.
Yeah, Dad, I need that 3D printer. I need 2 tons of graphene, please. Nanotubes and graphene. Really? Science experiment, huh? Yeah.
Let's say it's very close within the realm of possibilities that you would get, for example, the ear of the current administration. And with that ear,
I fear Rubio as a stop sign.
Oh,
I have nothing personal against him, but I'm on board.
That'd be the roadblock. That's the roadblock on the upper level.
I know
Oh,
that's a fact around town with alternative ideas, but Colonel Nell is correct. Their operation is not working. Let
excellent point.
Spielberg do his film, let them do their film, and it'll all fade. When the next Sex and the City remake is done on Netflix, that's
Well, I
going to
think
be
what Nell said was an earthquake because he said, obviously it hasn't worked the way that they've been doing it, and he signed on with them originally, and now he's like, the Elizondo Mellon gang, like it didn't work out. We need something else. I think that's significant because they were often turning to him for credibility and saying, "Well, we have Nell on board,"
yeah, and
But
he's not the
okay,
only one.
okay, good, good.
He's not the only one.
Do you want to tell us anything about
No,
others?
but
Well, how about without
actually,
mentioning any names? Just
I don't know their names, but I've heard
oh yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard that a lot of people are unhappy. I heard Eric Davis was unhappy.
interesting.
Then nothing gets done at the Soul meetings.
Yeah,
But a lot of these guys have NDAs, and I'm sorry, a lot of them seem like cowards to me. They're
yeah,
just
and they're looking for investment
chicken
more than
shit.
anything else. A
Yeah,
lot of them,
I can't come forward my NDA. I'm going to get whacked or something. Okay,
right?
but
But
still,
I want to go back to this administration thing because I just want your final kind of point on this. Let's suppose you got that meeting with the top of that administration. Let's say the president himself, relating directly to the UFO file. And as I say this, it's not very, it's certainly within the realm of possibilities. And I would say the odds would be even good for it. What would you tell Trump? And, like you said, they want 2-page briefs. And this would be a short thing that you would be able to tell him, of course. But what would you try to relate to him, knowing that he also is in the know on so many of these aspects?
well, this is the scenario. We go over ideas, brainstorming. Let's say we got 15 minutes.
Yes.
Um, I'd get to the heart of the matter right away. I'd say, listen, this is not 1975. It's not 1995. It's today. We've got a classified arms race that is off the reservation. It is out of control. We are not only going to destroy ourselves, but we could take some other people with us. I mean, some of these weapons can migrate, probably already have,
Yeah.
out there in the cosmos. And so it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be the right time. It just has to get done. And it has to be meaningful. And you've got to show people. You can't just anecdote stories and documents and films and photos they're not useless, but they're not that useful anymore. You've got to have a hardware show. And you've got to have the administration, the Joint Chiefs, and some Congress members in there, our government, our overt government out there and go, sorry for the secrecy. It was necessary for our survival. Probably it was. It wasn't right. There's been a lot of stuff, but everyone's got to get on board now. And if you don't do that, if you keep doing these, sort of weak tea and ginger snap piecemeal initiatives, it's going to go nowhere. And people are absolutely bored of all this. They'd rather go to something, made by a bunch of teenagers or college kids that's more interesting, than watch government spooks and ex-intel people and Congress people who are in the genre of people that covered it up in the first place.
Right. They're the ones who constructed that wall of secrecy.
Right. That's not what you want. I'm fair's fair. I give them credit for coming out and talking about the subject. But you can't just make a pie crust. You've got to make the whole pie.
Wow. Yeah.
You've got to have all the ingredients. You can't just have a tinfoil plate, flying saucer with breadcrumbs in it. That's not disclosure. What you want people to just believe you because you're officials? I mean, I think right now, if you polled America, probably 70% wouldn't trust the government. And the problem is there's a lot of people in the Pentagon and in the government who are good, upstanding people that want the best, but they're getting tainted by the few. And and the rest of them are scared to come forward because of all the termination clauses in their NDAs. I mean, it's just ridiculous. National security has strangled this country almost to death.
Incredible.
It's that bad. I mean, I still have to pinch myself that I'm going around, in DC and talking to people, and now they're finally interested.
Wow.
In something concrete. I'm like, holy shit, what did I miss?
Right.
And it's because of this World War III new physics weapons arms race, which is out of control. Because these quantum computing technologies, as soon as Anduril puts out, a carbon fibers, drone submarine with a torsion field, 0-point energy warhead, the quantum computer's already done something better.
Wow.
If you look at Palmer Luckey, he's kind of an idiot. He's really smart, but he's an idiot. And he goes out there and goes, this is all so cool. He's like the Tom DeLonge of the military industrial complex.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, our troops need the best of the best. Thanks for that. But, he'll say it to you. He's like, as soon as we complete a weapon system, we've already got one on the drawing board that's so much better, man.
Wow.
It's so cool. Wait till you see it. Oh, I can't talk about it. We're not a public company. You can't invest in me. He's a private company. They won't take public investors. And, so they've got weapons on the drawing boards that are just coming out, being spat out of prototyping faster than the ones that are already online. Let's just take the submarine with my dad's name on it. What are in those torpedo warheads? What are the configurations? They could take a module out and put a module in. I mean, what capabilities does it have? I guarantee you it'll go 100 knots underwater because it's got a 0-point energy electromagnetic bubble around it.
Wow.
As any good modern submarine should have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the Russians have them too. The
public has no idea we have that technology in action already.
Yeah. We have, nuclear weapons were dangerous enough. Now we have the capabilities to export that regressive warlike, actions and technologies out in the solar system and beyond. That's very dangerous because we definitely don't have the spiritual wisdom to go along with this technology. This is the whole thing with, the Prometheus's fire, the legend of it. No, we can't handle the fire. We're, getting our hands burned, but we don't care. We wear gloves. It's.
I remember you telling me about all these Navy officials getting together in 1980 to go to see this Navy movie that was all about, this kind of time travel technology the Navy had to go back to Pearl Harbor and all. I forget the name of the movie.
It was called The Final Countdown.
Yes.
And Martin Sheen plays a military contractor. He's on board the Nimitz carrier. And the lore is there's 30 minutes of it missing of the film. Film wasn't all that great. I was there with all the admirals and everybody. It was a recruiting film. It's at the Uptown Theater in DC. And they were all excited. It was going to be a great recruiting film, but they took out the good stuff, and that is the Martin Sheen character probably had some sort of gizmo on board to open that portal.
Oh, interesting.
Where the story of the USS Kearsarge opening a portal in the Caribbean and using some sort of Atlantis crystal. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but apparently you need a quartz crystal energized with some certain frequency or energy to open either a natural or maybe even a man-made portal. Because if you're in an average UFO and you're going around the solar system or the nearest star systems and everything, you're going boom, 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 portal, 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 wormhole all the time. Sometimes it's so quick, that the computer has to do it for you. You just think about where you want to go and you're there. And so
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was so interesting watching that movie because I felt like they were rolling out some kind of disclosure. And when you told me about the Navy interest at the very top level going to that movie, and I know your dad was the head of the Navy, the Secretary of the Navy.
No, he was a senator then.
He was a senator then, yeah. So it was previously he had been the secretary.
But the top brass were there. It was an expensive movie. They filmed it with F-14s really on the carrier. The Navy was in full cooperation. I mean, it was touted as a Navy film, just like Top Gun was, the original Top Gun.
John, why is the Navy the epicenter of this exotic technology piece and the epicenter of the UFO file? How is it the Navy has the lead on that?
The Navy has always had the lion's share of cutting edge technology. Go back to the USS Constitution class frigates. They were made with Georgia live oak, and they had very good, I think, 32-pounder cannons. They had good range. It had every good sailing technology, the latest hull design. It had everything in it, and we only had 4 of them. But the Constitution went out and really sank a lot of ships, and didn't sink them, but it captured them and everything like that. Ever since, the Navy's always had the lion's share. You've got cannon technology, forging, metals, materials. Back then it was a multitude of materials. They were all natural: leather, iron, brass, caulking, and sail canvas and everything. But it had every bit of cutting edge sail technology of the day. And then in the Civil War, you had the ironclads. I mean, look at John Ericsson's design of the Monitor. Yes, they pushed it out too quick. It had a lot of bugs in it. The turret wouldn't stop revolving, and it filled with smoke, and the ventilator fans didn't work. But it did its job, and it stopped the USS Virginia. It was a draw. And I mean, the Navy has always had the lion's share of technology. It needs it. A land army, and yes, the Air Force later on had a lot of high-tech stuff, engines and airframes and things like that, laminar flow, NACA ducts, jet engines. But the Navy needs aviation too. So you're combining. So the Navy's always had the lion's share of technology. In World War II, if I was FDR, you're darn right I would give the UFO file to Admiral King, and he gave it to Rico Boda and probably Leslie Stevens and all the other guys, and said, you guys figure it out at San Diego Naval Base. And boy, you better up your security. Because the Japanese and Germans are sniffing around everywhere. Everyone's on the hunt for technology in World War II.
Right.
Just like World War I or any other war. There's the war, and then there's all the scientists and archaeologists going out there. Sometimes they would fight each other, I heard. But it's always been the hunt for technology, more and more and more. And some of it we need. I mean, listen, none of us would be here talking about this if it wasn't for the U.S. military. They have kept us alive. I guarantee you that. From threats, existential, from out there and on Earth. They really have.
Yeah.
And, yes, we've got some problems with corporations and some shady people in there and everything like that. But, the lion's share of it is for our survival. By all accounts, it's a tough universe out there. It's sink or swim. If you come up and, different star nations, do experiments on a planet with genetics and then they let you be for most of it. Let you move on your own up the ladder of evolution. And it's sink or swim. How many species die out?
Wow.
Sorry, you didn't make it. You didn't make the cut.
It's fascinating. I think what's interesting is the level to which we're cut off from that ancient past and the awareness, and cut off from the advanced technology that a group was developing in the Navy in the 1930s. I mean, we're still in this kind of haze of secrecy. I guess I want to round this whole thing out with this whole the age of disclosure versus what the Chris Mellons of the world are calling gutter disclosure.
Yeah.
I love that. What are we looking at with their version of disclosure versus gutter disclosure getting to the truth?
Well, I'm gutter rat number one in their eyes. That's for sure. But, if you study military history, all wars are pretty horrific.
Yes.
People were enslaved. People were, genocided and everything. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Those guys I think they've lost some of their sanity too. It may not be their fault. They may have been given very thin briefings and they only believe that 1-inch file. It seems like it to me. They keep doubling down on doing the same old thing. They don't go anywhere new, and they don't interview anyone outside their group. It's very insular, and
Right.
so they're starting to get cancer. They're getting Habsburg jaw. They only mate with one another intellectually.
Right.
I'm saying they're getting
Yeah.
porphyria. They're getting blood diseases. It's not going well for them, like royalty. It's not going well for them, and they keep finding new people of their same ilk that are on board with the 1-inch file only instead of the 30-foot tall one. And that's that. And let's try to put the toothpaste back in the tube and have the 1980s all over again and keep people's minds on Roswell and Tic Tacs and, Jacques Vallée and Abbey Loeb with his, comets and asteroids and strange things out in space. And they'll never get to a conclusion on anything.
It's weird. There's also a weird lack of human empathy with this group.
There's no sense of humor. I mean,
Yeah.
It's all very dark stuff, but you and I and others on your show, we find humor in it. It's absurd.
Yes.
It is absurd. It's horrifying, but it's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a sense of humor among them, as far as I can tell. Chris Mellon doesn't have a sense of humor. That's for sure. He takes everything personally. And so this isn't personal. It never was.
Right.
Nothing is personal. I have nothing personal against anyone in that group. I'm disappointed with them. The Jacques Vallées of the world who claim to be UFO experts. And experts in what? They won't even talk about different dimensions at the soul meetings. Or if they do, it's sort of a vague reference. Keep that a vague reference.
And the controlled talking points. Yeah. Like, don't ask us any questions.
Don't ask, don't tell. It's silly. It's silly and it's childish.
And it's manipulative.
They're playing with the minds of millions. They're playing.
Yeah. It is highly manipulated. It's an excellent point. I guess what's interesting to me when I look out at where they're going with it is I do see that they're doing a very limited, lens on the whole thing. But it also seems to me that what they're trying to do is create this symbiosis between the defense contractors and the media and public perception on this. That tells me that it's a grab, it's a power grab underneath. And that's why you have people like Mellon involved. That's why you have Elizondo, because these are the people who are part of that entire system.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who want to benefit from disclosure, any kind, whether financially or career. It's just human nature. The corruption is like a cancer, by all accounts. Everyone who said they come from the inside, they said it's all falling apart slowly. It's like a cancer, because anything that's imbalanced in the universe craves balance. Cosmos. Dualities of balance. If you accept your dark side, your shadow work, as Carl Jung would say, you become a balanced person.
Mm-hmm.
And that is accepting truths that you don't want to believe in, but they're hard to, process, but you do it anyway. And you realize that you're bloodthirsty as anyone else, potentially. And so, but, they seem to be hell bent on just being regressive.
Yes.
Keep this secret. We've got to keep it contained. We got to put the toothpaste back in the tube, make it the 1980s all over again. That's madness.
Yeah.
Trying to go back in time and put toothpaste back in the tube. Yes, you could get a funnel. Okay. But the terminology of the aphorism, it just, you can't do that. You can't go back. I mean, if they have time travel tech, I'm convinced of that. I bet they've gone back in time. We got to prevent disclosure from happening. Got to.
Oh yeah. Yes,
and it doesn't work because every time, nature seeks a balance. Okay. And they're doing something unbalanced. The national security state is unbalanced.
And when you look at a company like Jay Stratton's Radiance Technology and things like that, do you think that they're getting promised that they're going to get this UFO technology if they come out and sort of present this limited and absurd intel version of the whole thing?
Oh, I think they're probably given bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, the companies that create smartphones and gadgets, they all get a little piece, whether they know the origin of it or not.
Oh, yeah.
You
They
know,
can keep them out of the loop and just be like,
keep them out of the loop. But I've talked to some CEOs, and they know where their technology came from. They didn't know it first, but then they said, "Oh, John, later on we figured out it came from Raytheon."
and what's their attitude on that? Are they,
Well,
do they think, oh, this is a good thing, or?
it's capitalism. I mean, you're dealing with people that are their whole reason in life is to be a CEO of a corporation.
Right.
They want to be the man, and the other people are jockeying for position. It's just like the U.S. government. Everyone wants to be president. Some people do. It's how do you get people's mind out of the real gutter, which is blind ambition and regressive communities, and national security state. And hello, we're all in this together.
And that's the impression you get when you talk to them.
Some, yeah. I mean, some people are like, well, I'm going to go underground. Okay. I mean, let's just say there's some civilizations they can interact with down below. Interesting. Not sure I'd want to spend my whole life, down below. Or there's some people who can leave.
Right.
They have an agreement with a corporation who's doing business, I don't know, the rings of Saturn, mining the rings of Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
You can come live with us on the Saturn moons. We got palm trees and cocktail bar. I mean, okay, leave the rest of us behind. Mm-hmm. That's fine. I don't care about anyone's ambition anymore. It's just like my life revolves around my grandkids. There's my step grandkids, but I love them anyway. And I'm like, don't you have grandkids? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I mean, people always make fun of the billionaires.
What kind of a world do you want them to inherit, right?
Yeah, I mean, the world's a messed up place for sure, but it's fixable, especially with technology. Everyone says, "Oh, the Earth is dying." It's like we can turn that around in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So that matter transformation technology, matter can be created or destroyed. That's a lie. It's one of the holy cows of academia. Can't go faster than light. Wrong. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Wrong. Gravity is not what we think it is. It's light held together by gravitational forces. Some people say gravity doesn't exist. It's something else. We're living in a world of so much lies. The worst is the scientists, because I love some of them, are great and they're brilliant. Our science is, I'm convinced, is half wrong. 50% of it is just wrong. The good science is being used for the worst and most nefarious projects, or war machines or things like that. But it's like the science of botany and light and gravity and matter and the fundamentals of the building blocks of the universe, sacred geometry. I think half of what the public knowledge in universities and everything is just flat wrong. Our history, 70% wrong, maybe more.
Wow.
How can you have a civilization running? I mean, it kind of works. Corrupt governments and institutions and everything kind of works because everyone's in on it. But it's just, there has to be a higher level of mind control, and that suggests ET at the top realms doing shenanigans, which they've always done. Fairs going around the universe. It's hey, we're messing with these people. Don't interfere with us. Okay, we don't. That's against cosmic law, and we're like, well, we don't follow cosmic law. Screw you. It's a tough universe. It's a tough universe. This is a duality universe.
Yeah.
Half of everything is dark. We have to accept that and try for the balance. That's where you get anything built correctly is balanced. An aircraft can't fly unless it's balanced, properly balanced. That's why they got to move fuel around. It's just
excellent point.
Things don't work, and you scale that up to the universe. I mean, imbalanced things just don't work. A black hole sucks in light and everything, a gas giant or whatever. But there's always balance, or at least
it's interesting. Yeah,
pursuit of balance.
Pursuit of balance. It's an excellent point. I wanted to ask you this because I had a long conversation with Joseph Farrell talking about shoot down orders in relation to UFOs. we know about the history of how this came about when this post World War II activity took place. If you were to take that into the current era, what do you think is going on in relation to that? I know the Golden Dome is set up, and we're looking at a $200 billion price tag for this as Star Wars 2 to prevent, the possibility of something taking over that is extraterrestrial. Are we, do you think, actively shooting down craft at this point?
Yes. There's actual video of them trying to shooting something, some pulse weapon. The
Yes.
UFO was like, well, holy shit, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
I think it was from the space station. But
Yes.
going back to Truman's shoot down order,
Yeah.
a couple things. One, if it's an ET UFO back then, I doubt if we had anything that could really bring it down.
Right.
That's number one. They can't shoot something down with a missile or 20 millimeter cannon or something. No way. Was the Roswell crash, a German gray? I think it was a German gray mission. They brought it down with a scalar radar from the 509th. That's a story. Okay, so we did have something that could disrupt the magnetic field and bring it down a UFO. So maybe we had some of that airborne.
Mm-hmm.
Airborne intercept radar was made possible by the Klystron tube of the Varian brothers.
Oh, right.
Right? So,
yeah.
So in World War II, they knew, well, let's try to bring a Foo Fighter. They probably brought down a few Foo Fighters, maybe, using that technology. Who clued us in on that being the way to do it? I wonder.
Yeah. Interesting.
Germans, and so, yes, we could probably bring down a UFO back then, but probably not a lot of them. But now, oh yeah. Now, a sixth dimensional craft that's sort of tri-located using quantum entanglement that's sort of there and sort of not there. Now, whatever you're using, it's not going to work. You're using it on things that might be lower fifth dimensional, fourth dimensional, actors. We might have that technology. Everything I've read about the higher fifth and sixth dimensions, it's barely corporeal, barely physical. And so how are you going to bring down something like that? There may be a technology to do it, but, it would seem unlikely. It would be more like when you're in the higher dimensions, you're sort of above the warlike stage of your evolution. You're sort of going around giving advice and observing and, doing things like that rather than getting involved in a hot war. I really doubt. I can't see, some sixth dimensional, mothership coming down here and going, hey, we're going to help you fight the Romulans and the Klingons. No, they're going to observe and give us some advice and, gentle advice and stuff like that. And then they're just going to watch and then probably leave because they're bored. How interesting is a war? You're a higher dimensional person. You're barely corporeal. You're corporeal when you want to be. You can manifest anything you want, and love is your guide. It's the strongest vibration in the universe. Why would you be interested in war? You're probably more interested in certain species of beings and animals and things like that and their evolution. This would be really cool if we get, these people to mature to a level, they might, add to our tapestry of magnificence, in the higher dimensions. I think that's the general idea for the human race by all accounts. But we're fighting wars and kicking ass and making money and, poverty, genocide, racism, human trafficking. We're in the gutter. We're all in the gutter. I'm sorry. Earth human beings, I don't care about the Lyrans or Pleiadians. Or whatever. Earth human beings, we're in the gutter. And we're fighting with swords and knives.
John, you've told me, and I kind of want to bring the whole conversation around to this, but you've told me that you've lost friends over the years for going after this UFO transparency. How does it impact you as a person when you get into this field? You have this background, you have your own studies and interests, and then when you get into this field, you come out on this show in 2021 and break the news that, hey, the Mellon family is involved a number of these things, and I think it's better to be transparent on the UFO file, including cousin Chris and all the shenanigans that he was engaged in and that he's engaged in to this day. How does it affect you dealing with some of that and losing friends and things of that nature?
Well, it's not all related, because as you grow older, my father told me years ago, he said, your friends tend to thin out. And I said, no, I have a very close group of 30 friends, 35 friends. We're very, very close. And he said, you wait. And the biggest reason you'll drift apart is politics.
Oh, wow.
And I said, no, nobody cares. None of us are really that political, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, the minute my uncle came out and giving a lot of money to Trump, and my one friend telling everyone I voted for Trump and everything like that, 90% of them just went away.
Wow.
And the thing is, as you age, and Carl Jung talks about this, you can read his books or you can watch some videos. There's a Carl Jung channel, several of them. And it'll say that when you're working on your own self, your shadow work, integrating yourself and everything, you're going to lose people, because they can't be around a person who believes in alternative things because their vibration is higher. And people are just like, like, I wish I had a nickel for everyone who said, you've changed. I said, I'm 63 years old. Of course I've changed. They're like, you didn't used to be so serious, or, and I'm like, I grew up.
Yeah.
What happened to you? Still working on the street and, going to strip clubs and.
Wow.
And it's hard because, my wife and I, she's different too. She just beats to her own drum. She doesn't care. People don't like you anymore. So what? Let them go.
Right.
You have to let go of things in life anyway, no matter what you believe or your belief systems. A lot of people maintain friends in religious groups, but a lot of people's thinking just change and they drift away. They don't, Carl Jung says, they don't serve you anymore. Like most of my friends just make fun of me, like I was 25. Like, they're sitting around talking about sports and maybe some politics.
Oh, no.
Like, oh, Warner, you're an asshole. You voted for Trump. What do you think? And so they don't respect you, or as soon as you lose respect from a friend, walk away. I don't care if it's your best friend in the world, walk away. They're not your friend anymore. Friendships are based on mutual respect. And that means politics, ideas, science, spirituality, everything. I don't care if I have friends that are highly religious. I like them.
Right.
But if they don't respect me, or they say you're a weirdo, you don't believe in God, you're an atheist, I can't. They'll walk away. It's part of maturing and evolving is the sense of loss of everything. We've lost our youth. I've lost a lot of my health. I'm in constant pain. Whatever. But I've also gained a lot. Working with veterans, it's humbled me. They're the most amazing people, and they're all beat up and shot up, and society kind of leaves them by the wayside. I'll say it again. I'm one of two people, my wife and I, and there's one other guy in Rappahannock County. We're the only ones who host wounded veterans for a deer hunt in Virginia every year.
Incredible.
Everyone else scared to death.
Wow.
They won't do it. And although they'll do a church ice cream social for them and everything, but these guys want to be out in nature. No one got a deer on Saturday, but they had a great time. We cook food for them, it's homemade food. These are the things you do in life, service to others, to elevate yourself.
Yeah.
Not, I'm cool, I got a lot of money, or I did this, or I got an award. Screw all that.
Yeah.
It's how you treat your fellow human being and, in a sense, nature and animal life. I stopped hunting. That's just my personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to scrub some of that mud off my wheel of karma. House is full of guns on the walls, but everyone's like, "Did you shoot that water buffalo?" And I'm like, "No, that's from eBay. I just put it up there because it looks good." So I just go with the flow, and people make fun of me or whatever. It doesn't sit right with me. I walk away. I don't say anything. I don't get angry at people. I really try not to. They're at their stage. You know, I have certain friends that I work with that are enlightened, like you and me, and all your viewers and everything. But they get angry at family members and stuff, and I'm like, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their fault that they're asleep or they're not at your level.
Interesting.
If you were in grad school getting a science degree, would you yell at a 5-year-old for not understanding quantum physics?
Wow.
No. Nor should you. You know, you have to let people evolve at their own pace. And, you know, disclosure, some people say the ontological shock is too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's risky. But in my view and in my group, the ontological shock is the tool we need to do the job.
Fascinating. It makes sense. It makes sense.
You don't need a scalpel. You need a giant battle axe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You need that. It's very risky. We will lose some people. Some people will go crazy and some people will be very upset. But it has to be done. People worldwide and every government, for various reasons, have dropped the ball. Sometimes it's their fault. Sometimes it's not their fault. It just, you know, and you can't blame people in Congress. I'd like to. It's my hobby, but you know, the Tim Burchetts of the world. He may really only understand that 1-inch melon file or whatever. He may and think everyone else is nuts, and you know he really maybe truly only believes that. And says, well, we got to get the truth out, you know, but we have to do it through official channels and, you know, forums and stuff to get the truth out. You know, it's unrealistic, but there are people that truly aren't at our level, and it's not their fault. They shouldn't.
He's like, hey guys, check out my skateboard.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my wife says, you know, Chris is just will not go beyond the 1-inch file.
Mm.
Maybe it's fear. Maybe he can't handle the gutter stuff, as he says, the wild stuff. He used to call it the wild stuff. Now we're all in the gutter. We're all in the gutter.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the upgrade.
Yeah, we're all in the gutter. It's realizing you're in the gutter and you've got a bloody battle axe and a sword in one hand. I mean, you've got to realize what's going on and not hide behind, you know, life is great. I'm going to go to a soccer game. We're going to go to a church ice cream social. And
can we call it out for what it is, though? What he's doing is a kind of elitist snobbery, thinking he can do that with the intelligence agencies and the UFO file. But the UFO file has been studied by all kinds of people who aren't involved in intelligence. Yeah. And you're just not going to be able to, you know, look down your nose and say, like, I'm doing this from a government billionaire level.
Well, it's just like any corporation or the military or the U.S. government. There are people who are fairly smart, but they're in a position where they're not qualified for it.
Ah.
And everyone who out there who's worked in the government or the military or for a corporation or a hierarchy knows what I'm talking about. People are promoted for whatever reason, politics, sometimes, you know, money, influence, who you know. Okay? But they're not qualified for the job. I had a conversation on an email from a guy that I met online. He said, I was in a job that I wasn't qualified for, and it was awful. And eventually I quit, and they put me in another position. But there are people with enough ego. There's lots of people like that say, I've worked in the government for 30 years. I've put in my time. I'm an expert. I'm an official. I've earned it. I deserve it. And here I am. I'm CEO or whatever. But they're not qualified. They're doing a shit job.
Incredible.
Here comes, you know, guys like us, just, you know, people like us, men and women, come around, but we're sort of got great imaginations and we're clued in, and we read all these books and we get it and we put it all together. It's just a skill. And we've had none of that 30 years experience in government or a corporation or the military. We have none of that, but we get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Palmer Luckey, I think. He was just some college kid and they tagged him. You know, the Anderil's hiring kids out of high school now.
Oh my God.
We'll teach you. You don't need to go to college. And for the guys in that industry, they might have a point. But I'll tell you one thing, and you know, it's not my fault. I'm not going to sit by on my fat ass and let all this happen without, sharing my voice. I'm
Right.
sorry, Chris. I can put it all together and I can see through the forest to the trees, and there's a UFO in the field. You can't. You see only the government narrative in your own little pathetic little box world. I've known these guys all my life. I know everyone out there knows what I'm talking about. These are people that say, I deserve this. I've never said that. I don't deserve anything. Nothing. There's a famous quote, and I don't know who said it. I want to say Carl Jung, but it was somebody. No one deserves anything.
Right.
People don't deserve to be raped or killed or murdered or poor or destitute or lose their limbs in combat or in chronic pain. They don't deserve their billions. No one deserves anything. It's the experience you want to have in life so that your soul can evolve.
Right.
That's nuts and bolts. It makes sense to me. But there are people who are stuck in positions of power, some type of power, who are not qualified for the job. It's very common. I think Marco Rubio is a good Secretary of State. I thought he was a lousy senator.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's so intellectually limited.
Yeah.
But I give him credit. I've watched him on the world stage. I think he speaks well now. I think he's done a good job. But he's one of those people in the administration who, people like me, the think tanks around DC and elsewhere, he's going to be a big stop sign with a whistle.
Interesting.
Because he wants the control. They want control of the narrative. And it's going to be U.S. government approved, Spook approved, NSA, NRO, approved, DIA, CIA down the line. It's not working. It's not working. It never really did. The secrecy never worked. Otherwise, we'd be talking about soccer. Go Barcelona! Yeah, I mean, it's here we are. I mean, it's just the way the world is. We're outgunned. We're David versus Goliath. But I mean, Goliath is a cyclops.
Mm-hmm.
We're battling a giant Goliath, but it only has one eye. Everyone in the disclosure arena, 2 eyes, and a third one.
Yeah,
a third one that's getting more active by the day. And we're up against a cyclops because it's just meandering around. It throws its weight in one direction or another, but it's not going anywhere.
Excellent point. Wow.
I mean, it's the simplest analogy I can come up with. These government spooky, CIA, scientists and spooks and whoever, they're blackmailed, they're paid well, they're on the payroll, but they're part of this juggernaut that's just it's big and powerful. It's got a lot of horsepower behind it, but it's got one eye. And we've got slings.
Wow.
And we're getting better every day at slinging. I'm going to sling, try to hit that eye. They don't have the 3 eyes. You need all 3 eyes to see. I mean, the third eye isn't really an eye, but it kind of, it's a sensory organ. But
this is a real David and Goliath situation.
These people have lost some of their humanity.
Right.
Everyone involved with the secrecy has lost some degree of their humanity. They really have. And they're not getting any better from what I can see. I don't see anyone from the inside. I don't see anyone, a 4-star admiral or anyone going, you know what? I'm going to have a come to Jesus. Those guys are right. I've seen no one like that.
Wow.
Yes, we get a colonel. Yes, we get a captain. We get a sergeant here and there. We don't get the general officers. We don't get the corporate CEOs. We don't publicly. I hope that changes. I hope the work we do changes, because I told you, and I'm going to tell your viewers now, you may not have as many subscribers as a lot of people out there, like, Ryan and Rogan and everyone with millions, but there's a lot more people that watch your show than I realized. They're not going to sign up or be on your comment section or your chat or whatever it is.
All right.
But they watch because we're talking about serious things. Not that other people in the disclosure movement aren't. It's just everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
But we're a little more nuts and bolts, and that appeals to some people. Because if you talk about the Klingons and Romulans and the higher dimensions and motherships made of black goo and all that stuff, you're going to lose some of your audience.
Hmm.
So some of that DC conservative military audience, they're watching you, and that's a testament. So I just
It's
thought I'd let
fascinating.
that
Yeah,
out.
and I
They're
appreciate
not
it.
going to call you up. Don't mention my name, Warner. Damn your soul. You're
Exactly.
a loose cannon boy.
I would also say that people would be surprised by who is watching the show, but I think it is, what you're talking about is very important here because you're getting to the heart of it. And this takes me back to a conversation that you had when you told me about you and your grandfather, Paul Mellon, and him sharing with you sometime after the war. There he is in Germany, looking out at a craft with others, and the craft is there, and it's over a football field and a half in diameter. Can you tell me how that came to pass and how he told you that?
Yeah. It was 1985. I remember because I was at UVA. And I was interested. I was thinking about going to the Navy and the Marines, as my dad suggested. I love all the military stuff. I didn't. I decided to go racing. But my grandfather didn't have a great intimate relationship with the women in his life, but he understood. He liked talking to my dad and myself. My dad and him were best friends. But when Dad married Liz Taylor, Paul Mellon said, "Look, I can't be seen with you anymore. She brings too much light on me.
Oh,
Don't ever mention
interesting.
me. Don't." Yeah, Dad was heartbroken. He told me that. But Paul Mellon needed to keep a low profile. And so when I had my discussion with him at his house in Virginia, I had a martini. He had three. I think he could handle them better than I could. But uh, I said, tell me about Patton, because I had done a history paper on Patton, and he's like, well, there's a lot in the history books they don't write about Patton. He didn't say he was murdered, but he said, it was very suspicious. But he said, I work for Patton, and I said, yeah, were you in the OSS? He said, yeah, while Bill Donovan, Alan Dulles, and I, and a couple other people, we were with Patton in certain areas in May of 45 when it was all coming to an end, when the Germans were surrendering and everything. And I can place Patton in Czechoslovakia right around that time, early May 45. And my grandfather said, we were in Czechoslovakia, not Germany. I'm assuming it was Pilsen. I'm assuming it was the Skoda Works,
Mm.
the SSE4 division. Because he said we went in and we saw this hangar, and we talked to some German scientists. They were hiring them. And I said, well, I knew that, Project Paperclip. It was not that well known in the 80s, but there were a couple books, and I read one of them because he gave it to me. He says, I was part of this. I'm proud of it. And I was proud of him for being part of it. And we were hiring the Germans. Oh my God, the Russians were on the rampage. We had to do it. And he said, we went in with Patton. I think General Marshall was with him, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. But Patton had a couple generals that worked for him that he trusted. It might have been, I forget. But there was a couple that were close to him that were probably read in by the OSS. But he said there were MI6 people there, and there were CIC people there. That was the U.S. Army. It wasn't the G2. It was the CIC. But there was a group of people, and they were being shown the Wunderwaffe weapons. And I said, oh, I know about some of that, the V-2 rockets, the guided missiles, and the television guided. And he said, yeah, we saw all that. We saw some jet engine designs, aircraft on the drawing boards. He said Patton got angry because there was on one of the drawing boards in a studio was a drawing of the, I think it was a supersonic ramjet bomber to bomb America.
Oh,
There were several America bomber programs.
yes.
It had like 50 programs for one operation. It was a little inefficient. He said Patton got mad at God damn. Patton could speak fluent German and fluent French.
Okay.
And my grandfather was fluent in French, and he said they had great conversations. But they went into this place where all the rocket parts was, and he said there was a really large disc-shaped aircraft. Now, I want to say he said it was 100 meters or so in diameter. I think that was correct, but he was ballparking it. He said it was really big. And in fact, he said some of the American officers kind of laughed. They were like, they're going to get this thing off the ground. It's got where are the jet engines and everything? But he said Patton was in the know. he and Donovan knew that it was probably an exotic propulsion unit. And he said it was very
Incredible.
big. And it had the drum structure on top, and it looked like a flying disc. He said it was very big, but it was also jumbled up with all the V2 rockets. The Germans had just piled all this stuff in a hangar, hoping the Allies might not find it, or
Amazing.
maybe that the Allies did before the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, and I wrote it in my novel that I'm writing now, that they met with some of the German scientists left over that were still there. Most of them had fled.
Right.
And I also heard a story that Kammler made it back to the States with the Bell on a ship with Patton. But I'm not sure about that. That might have been General Peter, one of Patton's trusted 2-3-star generals. His name was Peter something. I think he probably, if Kammler did go by ship with the Bell and some other gear from, I think it was either Le Havre or maybe even Hamburg, something like that. They used the rail system to get all that stuff out and brought it back. And they had an Army train waiting for them at Newport News, and it went all the way to Wright Field in Ohio. So the Bell, maybe some disc stuff, all the cool junk, it was piled on a couple of trains, big trains.
Incredible.
But
wow. Unbelievable.
They didn't know exactly what they were looking at. We do now. I wish I had a drawing. He didn't draw it or anything, but it kind of reminds me of some of the Hanbu drawings.
Mm-hmm.
It did have a drum structure on top. And so he says, I said, what was it? Had the jet engines like the Flugelrad, And he said, no. This was something else altogether. And so at the time I thought, it's just another German wacko project. But then later on in the 90s, little bits and pieces started coming out about the story of Neuschwabenland.
In this special episode, John will reveal what he's been hearing from insiders in D.C. in UFO think tanks and what they're saying about World War III and alien technology. Is it happening now? Please join us now.
John, it's great to have you back with us.
It is excellent to be back.
It has been a while. I know you've been up to a lot, and you're working on book number 4?
That is correct. I'm working on book 4 in my series. I got to touch on Antarctica and Project High Jump.
Fantastic.
I always call it Project High Jump. I think it was Operation High Jump.
Operation, yes.
And some other things. But yes, I've been actually working with a couple of think tanks in D.C., giving them help in any area, especially military history, which sadly there's a lot of consternation going on around the world. Militaries are being built up, and of course there is a classified arms race with all that new physics technology, which is very concerning.
Yes.
And so, there's a lot of interest around the DC area about whether or not certain disclosure initiatives could shift the focus away from, hey, let's, use our new toys and, blow up the earth 10 times over. Wouldn't want to lose Australia out to space, and wouldn't want Japan to sink under the water, stuff like that, no big deal, but, concerning.
Yes. Wow. Little Edgar Casey Earth changes, anyone?
Yeah. It could be human, man-made Earth changes, which is very sobering, actually.
It's Atlantis all over again, John.
It does seem there's a lot of correlation with the legends. I don't know if anyone's going to throw asteroids or whatever, but they might. I think we have the technology to do that. As a friend of mine once said, when all else fails, just throw rocks, really big ones. And boy, that really gets people's attention.
Yes.
We've
been seeing a lot of those fireballs. It seems like an increasing number of fireballs everywhere. Like, it's just meteorites, but it seems like the number is quadrupled in the last 2 years.
Yeah, what I worry about, and some of my colleagues, are they warnings to certain groups and people? Because remember, it's not just Russia, China, North Korea, America, Five Eyes. It's always the factions, whether it be corporate or international or national corporate. All kinds of things. Little wars go on, and they're not noticed, and it's like one corporation battling another for territory or markets or whatever. So that doesn't make things easier. It makes them more complicated.
No question. No question. That hidden technology, the public has no idea about. They've seen some science fiction, they've heard some stuff around these fields, but they're about 50 years out of step with what's actually going on.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. Some of the people I've talked to in DC are aware of the potentialities and the possible, fallout from some of those weapons. I tend to have a broader military mind on that than some people. Some people are worried about like one thing. In other words, in my perspective, big nukes are not our issue. They're kind of a useless weapon, whether they have radiation or, given the ripple experiments, it doesn't matter. They're very destructive and dirty. It's the smaller tactical nukes, which may not have any radiation signatures that last very long. Those can be used. No, it's the weapons. Let me give you an example. I said to a group of people, I said, look, you got Finland and Poland and the Baltic states just itching to fight Putin. They're almost in a attack mode. I bet a lot of those military generals and things would like to attack Russia, go over the border into Russia. But to my mind, Putin doesn't have to put one boot on NATO soil. Not one. Not a tank, not a truck, sure, a drone, maybe an aircraft overflying, but nothing on the ground. Because if you take a scalar frequency weapon, similar to what Eric Hecker was talking about, the Ice Cube project, but if you had it on a sub or an aircraft or a satellite or a low Earth LEO orbit aerial platform, I'm going to pick on Copenhagen for no reason at all. So you have Copenhagen, Putin wants to make a message. So you fire an EMP weapon, everything goes out in Copenhagen, everything with the chip is fried, all the electronics are fried, the grid goes down, no electricity. Then he uses, let's say, a sub off the coast, and he uses a frequency weapon to start a mild earthquake. And most of Copenhagen crumbles, not too much, but enough to get people's attention.
Yes.
And then he's like, you still want to tangle with me?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And Finland says, up yours, Putin, we're going to attack. And they cross the border and everything like that. I mean, I think he has weapons to melt down a tank division.
Wow.
Where they sit. You're talking about weapons. I know Farrell's been talking about it for a long time. I have. These are things that are not only have quantum possibilities, but using a 0-point weapon that's been weaponized, a generator or something. You could sink Japan in a day using earthquake weapons, or anything like that.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah.
I talked to one guy, and he's like, I think they could blow Australia into space, leaving
Incredible.
a 2,000-foot hole where Australia used to be. And I'm like, whoa, I don't want to think about that. And it's like, but that's the kind of potential we're talking about. And so everyone's fighting the last war. I understand that. The public, but the generals and admirals in the know, they know some of these new generational weapons can do severe damage without radiation, without sort of damaging the environment too much. But you look up the rods of God, and it says theoretical weapon. Okay, that's bullshit, and we've had it for 30 years plus. all these 400 Chinese ships that are out there. You could put a rod from a satellite orbit, and one rod, one ship. So I'm not worried about Chinese naval. They can cause a lot of damage, go around the Pacific, but and then the Chinese Navy is sitting on the bottom. Then what do? Well, Xi goes to the toy box and says, let's sink Australia and Japan. That'll get their, and there may not be a way to deter that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
I'm confident the United States does have a protective dome of some sort. We've had it since the 60s, really, with the Hughes aircraft stuff and
yes.
Star Wars, Reagan Star Wars. We've had that for a long time. But that you're talking about physical objects, missiles, aircraft, things like that. It may not work with frequency weapons, and I don't think it. I don't know, but I don't think it can protect us from EMP pulses.
Mm-hmm. Are you hearing in the background that people really on the inside are concerned about World War III?
Yes, very concerned. They sure as hell wouldn't contact me for help if they didn't. I'm sort of out there on the bleeding edge with you guys.
Thank God.
But there are people that weren't there that are there now.
Yeah.
The problem is, who's on whose side, and that's a little difficult because I know that I watch Gaia. I think some of the stuff is good. Richard Doty's on there telling ghost stories, UFO ghost stories.
Yeah.
What I call them, they're sort of mild. An ET escaped S4 and it stole a station wagon and left a family on the side of the road. Okay, that did they
probably
get the
happen?
Wagon back? I mean, but he did say that he's part of his own think tank of older guys, insiders who are retired, and he said we're not happy with the narrow focus group that's currently active on Capitol Hill. Now we all know who that is. That's Dylan Elizondo, Avi Loeb, and Gillibrand Burchett gang. Hole in the wall gang, the hole in the head gang, I call them.
Yes, the UFO threat cadre.
Yeah, and so, but you're talking about people in their 90s, late 80s, 90s. Sometimes that's okay, but the feeling is around town from the people I've been working with, and we've been working with a few billionaires with that. They're companies have benefited from reverse engineered technology.
Yes.
And one of them we met in London, and this person said, I would love to have some disclosure as long as it doesn't affect my bottom line.
Wow. And
I said, well, if we're all dead in 10 years, that's going to affect your bottom line.
Yeah, right.
Unless you want to live underground somewhere. I don't. I like being above ground. I can't speak for everyone, but or you can leave the planet and go somewhere else with, a group which may or may not need you and your corporation. I try to explain that in a very calm way to him, but no. But there are others who significant. I mean, my uncle obviously cares. I don't know exactly what his knowledge base is regarding, the national security state technology, division.
Interesting, yeah.
Plural. But I think he knows something, and he definitely has his heart in the right place. I wrote him a note, said, thank you for helping the troops with their pay.
Yes.
Everyone thinks it's Chris Mellon's uncle. It's not. It's my uncle.
Yes. Me. Yeah.
He doesn't have the greatest affinity for Chris. So we did discuss that. But, the people that are now sort of interested that weren't so much before, national security trumps all, don't want to give our enemies any secrets. Well, I don't either, but revelations of certain technologies and where we got them from and maybe who we're working with, that might get people's attention away from, I just want to blow up the world.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
there were mutual assured destruction. There were win scenarios with nuclear weapons. Oh, no. These new physics weapons, that's what it's called. That's the buzz phrase. The new physics weapons.
Right.
You can use those and have your country survive, but everyone else is dead.
Yeah.
Okay. And, the rest of the earth is okay. The flora and the fauna are some of them may die, but basically the earth is intact. And so it's given a lot of flexibility. Let's just theorize, Xi and the Chinese are like, now we can really, swing a bat around and knock people in the head and see, so they can see things our way, the Chinese way.
Yes.
Which is, divide and conquer, ports, African countries, resource, colonialism.
Right.
And, a smaller nation might say, okay, because we don't want to suffer your wrath.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know the United States doesn't want war with China or Russia or North Korea if we can avoid it. Everyone's on board with that, except for a few people who would literally rather go down with the ship than give up anything in the national security state, whether it be information or advantage or a weapon systems or any kind of truth or transparency on that. And so you're running up against the modern day LeMays, General LeMay.
Yeah,
would
absolutely.
really rather die in a fireball than give up anything. But something's got to give. This is it's no joke anymore. It's there's no Cold War. The gray zone warfare is hotter than ever.
Yes.
It's the Russians and Chinese are really actively, and North Koreans too, and Iran and some other smaller players. They're really active in the gray zone warfare. It's getting to be a real pain, and it's much beyond the Cold War. They've upped the ante big time. So it's very concerning, how to do it. But since the Roman Empire, we've been taught to fight wars.
Yeah.
And we're good at it. And apparently out there, we're really good at it. We build good stuff. We're good engineers. So there's actually a lot to be proud of, as well. There are some dark aspects to this, especially when you get into the occult and interdimensional entities, jinn, archon areas. It is dark, but that's part of our duality. We live in a duality universe. If you watch Star Trek, I'm a Star Trek fan. They talk about our duality, and they're always fighting.
The people who created it understood. There's no question.
Yeah.
That is an interesting point. And also, when you see Vice President Vance or Tucker or, Congresswoman Luna saying UFOs are demons, don't you know?
Demonic. Yeah, that's it.
They're demons. And it's obviously a bald-faced, naked effort to swing the Christian thing behind the UFO thing by telling them it's demons. We need a UFO defense office. We have to have those billions to go out there. And fight them off.
DDO.
John, what do you think when you see that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Rubio is with that effort, on Capitol Hill.
Yes.
This is they're trying to put 1,000 tons of toothpaste back in a half-ton tube.
Wow. Exactly. This is the problem.
It's not going to work, and it's
excellent point.
The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And Mellon, Rubio, and all these guys, they've had 8 years now to do something.
They just manipulated it down their own corridor.
Yeah, in their minds, they got the Valet idea, and he's in that mix, Soul Foundation. They need this rigid steel and iron structure.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. I understand that. But without flexibility in this, I mean, this is the biggest issue in human history. It needs flexibility.
Yes.
No one has the facts straight. No group has that. I'm sure on the inside they know a lot of truth, but no one has the whole ball of wax. And so, by doing this rigid thing, they can only, it's like the analogy would be in a cage. I mean, you can see the people outside the cage, but you're inside this protective iron cage. Well, how are you going to have a meet and greet and mingle and talk with people if you're inside this protective cage? It's like they built this giant 50-ton tank.
Right.
And they pop the hatch and they wave and they're like, yay, here's some UFO truth. And, out pops a flag that says truth instead of, a shell out the barrel. I mean,
so that's the controlled disclosure op that's meant to benefit the groups that are approaching this, that are on the inside, that are intel, connected with corporate interests, defense contractor interests. That's their game.
Yeah.
It seems like. What I want to ask you is, it's very interesting.
What genius thought that up that would work? Oh, they're going to believe us because we're officials and scientists?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Some people believe them. That's the narrative. That's the word. Everything
actually,
else
considering the amount of media, money, intel, government, everything that was behind them, they've done an incredibly poor job.
It's piss poor. I mean, I'm sorry. They thought, oh, we got, the officials out there and some scientists, well-known ufologists, ufologists. What the fuck is that? Jacques Vallée had half a century, and his cohorts, Eric Davis, and all these other guys, that are scientists, ufologists, and they bicker about their titles.
Right.
But so what? You're all in the same game. You've worked on the inside. Big deal. You're not giving anyone anything concrete. You're just giving us more of the same. It's just got a, Pentagon, U.S. Gov, stamp on it.
Exactly.
That's not transparency. That's just more of the same.
Exactly. If anything, they're recycling and rehashing narratives that were big in the 1980s and 1990s and pretending that they're just laying them out for the first time. And gosh, can you believe it? We actually redistributed and redeveloped a UFO craft. We knew that, in the 1970s? Close Encounters?
I've said it a million times. This would have worked fine 35 years ago.
Yes. Years ago. Well, let me ask you this. I want to take this I want to crisscross this Age of Disclosure documentary that's coming out. A lot of fanfare, big marketing budget, CIA big budget, Dan Farrar, Steven Spielberg's producer, and also Lou Elizondo's agent, Jay Stratton's agent, Grush's agent. This guy pretending he can talk objectively and ask objective questions of these people when he's their agent is absurd to start with. But I want to get to this because you came out 2021.
You and I need an agent. I got a gal here. She's worked on the inside. She could be our agent.
I know. Here comes the agent.
Farrell said it best. Who the hell needs an agent for this?
Exactly. Why would you need an agent if you're a whistleblower? It makes no sense.
Well, I've worked in film and television, and I'll tell you my opinion.
Yes.
They have this narrative, but it's just a piece of Swiss cheese. You could look through it. It's got so many holes. It's really not much there. So in order to give it the appearance of more solidity, more, value, credibility, anything, they're going to get agents and press and they did this film with a lot of money. Apparently there's not much photographs or film footage in it. It's just all talking heads.
Yes.
I know you and I are here, we're talking heads, but
no, this is incredible. Here they are doling this thing out. They've already done these previews in various theaters. As a matter of fact, this thing was shot a year and a half ago. They held on to it, and I'm going to get into that also because that is very shady, the way that they've done that and combined it with the 3-Eye Atlas thing, which supposedly was only found in July. But Age of Disclosure, the big budget documentary with Farah at the helm and all of the spooks right at the front, the main character, well, Elizondo's narrating narrating it. And the character that they're putting front and center for all this is James Clapper, the disgraced former DNI.
My hero.
John,
come on.
I mean, where are you coming from as a filmmaker doing that? Obviously, either you don't know or you're instructed who to put up there. Either way, it's a total bomb.
Was he named after a venereal disease? Not sure. Yeah,
he's an admitted perjurer. He bugged Congress. Why are we going to listen to him about the most important subject in human history?
Yeah, it's insane. Why? I mean, they're doubling down on all the bad guys.
Yes.
Doubling down on the same old thing and adding more bad guys in the mix.
Exactly.
I mean, it's insane to start with, doing the same thing over and over again. But now they got more, it's nefarious, questionable people. It's
incredible.
The mind. I mean,
yeah.
What is their objective? JP's right. They're going to get raked over the coals starting tonight.
Right.
But it's insane.
But, Bill Maher had Dan Farah on, John.
Yeah.
And he lobbed him all these softball questions like, and Dan Farah was like, our time has come, disclosure can't be denied. Look, all my CIA friends have told me so. I mean, going to the CIA for the truth about the UFO file is like going to a serial killer for aid and comfort. I mean, it is ridiculous as a concept because they're trained to lie.
Yeah. I mean, how many foxes do you want to have at the henhouse party?
Yes.
I mean, just they keep inviting more, you get truth here. There's no, hens will be fine. Look, see, all the foxes are around.
Right.
It's a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And the truth is really the victim.
Oh, that's a really good point.
I've never had a good feeling about Spielberg because in the 80s, in the 90s, when I started defining more about the Annenare Bay and, how he didn't show that it was the SS in charge of archaeological digs with Waffen-SS and the Annenare Bay scientists. He just made them regular German Wehrmacht. And I thought, I wonder.
It's pretty big to leave out. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of big there. There would have been SS standards everywhere. They would have had newsreels. And, they kind of softened that Indiana Jones thing. I mean, they really were looking for the Ark of the Covenant and how there were many, many arks. I mean, this is all about technology, the hunt for technology over the ages. But, it's going back to Spielberg. It's like, I mean, Close Encounters was fabulous for the time. Absolutely point on. And everyone was like, yeah. And nothing afterwards.
Incredible.
Just, E.T. phone home, silly crap like that.
Yeah. They had Hynek in the mix there, and it seemed like something was going to happen, and it just got shot down.
No, and there's always the story. There's a half an hour of the film missing or more.
Oh, that's interesting.
Probably true, in my guess. Just like a lot of films get made, and they're like, take that out.
Right.
Better take that out.
Spielberg is releasing a UFO movie in 2026 that he shot in New Jersey, and his consultant is Lou Elizondo in the movie. I mean,
fan-frickin-tastic.
Are you kidding me?
Drones.
Yes.
This is the new thing, drone. You didn't see a UFO, that was a drone.
Exactly.
But it was 5 miles wide, and it was going Mach 50. Still a drone.
We haven't had you on since the drone scare, which was last.
Top out.
Yeah. That's December of 2024.
They had FAA registration lights. I'm a pilot. Any pilot knows that. You saw the footage. You can hear the engines going. They were piston engines.
Yeah.
Was there an anti-gravity drone in that mix? Maybe. But, the whole thing is plausible deniability times 1,000.
What were they doing with that? Were they building up data points for the Sky event and the UFO threat aspect?
I don't know, maybe. But I'll tell you one thing for sure, because I consulted my military guys. If those drones flew over that military base and they didn't bring them down with fire, then they knew about it and they were part of it.
Bingo.
The news never covered that.
There's no way they're going to let them fly over those secret bases.
You better believe they have anti-aircraft fire big time. Those bases are heavily protected. Those drones wouldn't stand a chance. They probably would have brought them down within a mile of the base.
Excellent point. Yeah, the whole thing,
Really
the whole
silly.
theme
The
is
press
absurd.
in on it is a stinker.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. When you see that process now, and it started at Langley, supposedly, and moved its way up the eastern seaboard, when you see that happening in Europe, happening in Belgium, in the UK, Denmark, closing down airports, drone emergencies, what is it that's behind this effort?
Well, Europe's a different kettle of fish. No pun intended, but it was a good one. No, those could be Russian, those could be Ukrainian. Remember, Ukraine wants more support, so sometimes they're going to. Logic dictates that Zelensky would send drones over some European cities to get them light a fire under their butts.
I see. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Or they could be United States or whatever. Whoever's agenda is to get Europe to rearm, which I know the United States, Europe should rearm, sadly. I'm sorry, you need to do that. United States will never let NATO down. Come on. Never. Trump and everybody, they wanted to get people up to speed. Finland, Sweden, and Poland already are. They have very capable militaries. But come on, troops, trenches, military vehicles, tanks, they're still useful in certain situations.
Yes.
On a modern battlefield, I mean, the footage speaks for itself. I mean, they were blowing up Russian tanks right and left.
Incredible.
And the cages help, the turtle cages and things like that. But we're still rolling tanks off the line. The German Leopard tanks are rolling off with incredible optics, and it's like World War II all over again. We got incredible Zeiss optics and all these electronics and everything. Well, a drone the most vulnerable thing on a tank is all of its lenses and optics and sensors. Boom, 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 boom. $1,000 worth of drones, and all of a sudden the tank's blind.
This is a rollout of the new warfare.
Yeah, I mean, come on. When the Hellfire missile came out in the 90s, tanks were pushed to the second tier. I mean, this is crazy. World War III, if it happens, it's not going to be anything like people think it is. It's going to be asymmetrical. It's going to have cities will just catch fire or crumble to the ground with frequency weapons. Gray zone warfare will be upped to being hot and open sourced. Cables will be cut. Internet will be cut. We'll be down to. I just got Starlink. We're watching it on Starlink here.
Oh wow!
I'm in rural Virginia, so near the Blue Ridge. So I have to have Starlink. You're going to be down to basic services because the internet is a weapon.
Yes.
DARPANET, it was created as a communication system, but that is augmenting weapons systems by communication services. So, I mean, and you're going to have anti-gravity UAV, UFO warfare.
Right.
And so I have a friend, and she attended the recent Seoul meeting. And Jacques Vallée was master of ceremonies. And he laid down the groundwork by saying, we're all going to get a chance to talk about stuff. I want no weird questions. Only what's on the docket.
Wow.
What is going to be discussed. Nothing else. And so we can all imagine what they discussed when that's, various. I know Jacques Vallée discussed the radiation signatures on a UFO landing 30 years ago somewhere in the United States. Okay, that what good is that? And who cares?
Exactly.
So this is the kind of thing they're discussing.
Controlled talking points.
And it's just it's so blasé and non-important. It's incredible. They just want to keep their boring narrative going.
Right.
Is what my friend told me. And
it doesn't reveal anything, really.
Yeah, there's some discussions afterwards, and I think if you could shake hands and make friends, maybe there's some movement there. But I don't know. But, this is the thing. It's like Jacques Vallée also said, and he said in several interviews, there needs to be a structure for disclosure, a firm structure. And so they built that over 8 years with everybody, Mellon Elizondo, Avi Loeb. They continue to do it. But that firm structure they have, it's way too firm. There's no flexibility in it. They're all hiding behind their NDAs. They're all, I get an email from time to time from people, and they're like, I wish I could help, but I can't help you because I have an NDA, and they take it seriously. They'll put me in jail, and I got a family and grandkids, and I'm like, okay, I understand, but so it's not flexible. They're getting their marching orders from someone in the national security state. We can all imagine Bobby Ray Inman's probably still in that mix.
Oh, yeah.
What is he, 110? I don't know. and there's nothing they can do because it is serious. These people, Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, but they haven't done anything. I don't care if they've worked in black programs and they have experience with UFO technology. If you're not going to talk about it in any meaningful way, and it doesn't matter if it's in front of Congress, at the hearings, it's still documents, it's still anecdotes, it's still telling tall tales.
Yes, exactly.
Which I agree. The disclosure movement, everyone's been doing that. We all do that. It's all we have.
Mm-hmm.
And, but my idea is, and I've told several groups of people this, it's like you need a three-prong disclosure, a flexible disclosure initiative. Don't want to give our secrets away. You don't have to say that how this weapon system works. Just, hey, we've got a weapon that we've back engineered. But you've got to have a hardware show. I don't care where you do it. I don't care if it's in Texas. I don't care if it's at Lockheed in LA. I don't care. Call it a military arms expo. I wrote it out. Military arms expo. And have a small craft hovering, floating there, and have a black triangle, circling the area.
Mm-hmm.
Because then the stupid argument about anti-gravity is over in a second.
Right.
Number two, people can lay eyes on it. The public's invited. It's not private. The public is invited. Block off the streets. I don't care. Use the National Guard. But
exactly.
Have it public.
They're using them already to round up all the criminals anyway.
Right, and then do one on the East Coast. I don't care. Pick a military base, Andrews Air Force Base. I don't care, but have it open to the public and the press.
That's a great idea. Yeah, it's a fantastic idea.
Okay, so there's that. You don't have to say how it works. You don't have to say, well, we're using torsion fields and plasma accelerator rings. You don't have to just say, look, our engineers are really awesome, and they are.
Right.
It's not easy to reverse engineer stuff that's 1,000, 10,000 years ahead of you. That's damn hard. Play that up. We're not stupid. By all accounts, the human race on Earth is pretty damn clever and creative. We're good engineers. We're good, everything. So play that up. That you've got to invite the Russians, Chinese, North Koreans, everyone to the events, and also have dialogue with them in public and in private. That's ongoing, I believe, from what I've heard. It's always ongoing. But
do you think that those who are holding that wall of secrecy in place would ever allow something like that to happen?
Well, you're not going to have any kind of omelet without breaking eggs. And then there's a third thing, and there has to be a group of people in the administration, I think, some civilians, in there. You got to have the president. You got to have credibility. Here's the biggest problem for everyone: disclosure movement, the Soul Foundation, all those guys. No one really has credibility.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't have a UFO in the barn, in the garage. I can't. We need to. It's not enough to tell people their laptops and smartphones and Teflon pans and fiber optics are all reverse engineered. Mm-hmm. Anecdotal stories, tall tales. The public need to be shown.
Right.
And so it's a real problem. It's like the chicken and the egg, or whatever whatever stupid analogy you want to use. But it's like you've got to bend this rule, or we're not going to have anything.
This is why the whistleblowers have failed, because it's all about, well, this officer said to me that he was inside of a craft, John.
Yeah, he saw a giant egg come out of a UFO. It's like, great, call Richard Doty. I bet the station wagon people, they abducted a station wagon.
And the egg loved him too.
Yeah.
It's not...
So I mean, that's all great. It's all part of the narrative.
Yeah.
The big narrative. Everyone's efforts, Doty's, everyone's. It's all part of it, but it's still all anecdotal.
Yeah.
You've got to have something solid and physical to show people, and you're still going to get a lot of skeptics. A lot of people Americans don't trust the government. They might think, oh, it's just AI. They're fooling us again. They've lied to it for 75 years. They're not going to show us the truth. You're still going to have to win over the public, even though you do a three-pronged, you do a press conference at the White House, but you got to have senators, congressmen, the president, the Joint Chiefs, all of them, to have any credibility whatsoever.
Yeah.
Half of America hates President Trump. Okay, fine. But, we got to have somebody in charge. And he's, knowledgeable because of his uncle, John G. Trump. So, and Nixon, it has to be that at the least. Maybe smaller shows at other military bases. So what? I mean, the Chinese, the Russians, and the North Koreans know what we have for the most part. They have actually spies. My God, it's all over the internet. You and I are blabbing about it. Everyone is blabbing about it. No, we're not going to lose anything there. You don't have to tell people how any of this stuff works. Let the science community, chit chat. But you've also got to, at some point, tell people, sorry, folks, the history books are pretty much all wrong. Few exceptions, but
wow. Yeah.
And, the rest of us go into the history that, it's not written in stone, but here's what, the best minds have come up with in, 1,000 books, Atlantis, ET visitation, experimentation, geology going on for millions and millions and billions of years on Earth. Come on, it's a laboratory. And, not to scare people, but the people who are going to be scared about all of this are going to be scared anyway.
Excellent point. Exactly.
And so Jacques Vallée, so Jacques Vallée comes out and says, well, we can't disclose, because of the religious issue. So I've given that great thought. I'm not a religious person, but I understand religion and the history of it. Personally, I don't see any problem with it at all, really. Not much. You need someone to get up there and say, look, from what we've heard from ETs and people around it, there's as many spiritual systems in the universe as there are stars.
Yeah.
How can that knowledge not expand our spiritual and religious horizons?
Exactly.
All of us.
Yeah.
Every religion, every philosophy, everything. How can that not expand? And so everyone's like, religions are going to collapse. I'm like, why? We know the Vatican's ready. They've, let slip some gossip here and there. I can't speak for Islam, but I would think there are a lot of Islam clerics who have no issue with that. Indigenous peoples, no problem. I mean, in the Native American tradition, the Hopi, all the Kachina dolls are, the sky people.
Yes, exactly.
Who helped us with farming and corn planting and, doing everything. So, I mean, a lot of it
lived with that whole mentality.
Yeah.
Already. Yeah.
And people have to stop with the us and them. We are star people. We are a star nation. We are out there. I'm on board with that. I believe that for a long time. We've been out there mucking around. Some people say we don't have a good reputation. Well, we don't have a good reputation down here either.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
It's the Roman Empire. We've had all these empires. Oh, in fact, I'm joining the Roman army.
Oh, let me see this.
Fire.
Yes.
So I've got a local Roman army troop, and I'm gonna be a signifier.
This is literally the greatest.
Caesar.
John, I'm going to switch gears here and ask you a few questions about your forthcoming book on Antarctica. Now, you've gone deep on the X technology, and in part one, we discussed Paul Melling telling you about a German saucer. When did you figure out the secret Antarctica research?
The 80s, I think it was public that the Germans had a base in Antarctica, but it was just played down like it still is. Right. Oh, it's just scientific. Yeah. 300 missing U-boats, Antarctic settlement women in the pale blue uniforms. Oh yeah, it was just it was just a scientific. Actually, it was scientific, but come on,
incredible. And this is what your fourth book is about.
Antarctica should be part of disclosure, hands down.
Yes,
all of it. And once you pull that icy string, it's all going to unravel.
Wow,
that's the other thing. I mean, it's like I told you at the beginning. We don't have to do anything, really. You can sit back, pop popcorn, drink a beer. Sit back, enjoy the show, because they're just crumbling. They're feeding upon themselves. Mellon, Elizondo thing, Rubio thing. It's not going to work. The American public, the human race, is just so curious, and we want to know where we came from. We want to know what's out there. We want to know what technology is here with us. We want to know who we've been doing trade and deals with. It's going to become too fascinating for them to contain it. And it really isn't contained. I mean, disclosure has been going on since the 50s. It's just so few people believe in it still. There's more now, but there's more people on Earth now. So the ratio is probably the same. I don't know. There's no way to. How do you count? Greer says, there's 10 million people in the disclosure movement. Really? You went out and personally counted them? There's no way to really know. And everyone's at a different level.
Yeah.
It's like the people on Twitter, they said, oh, we love it when you go on Daniel's show, but I don't believe a word of it. But it was really great. It was really great and entertaining, but I don't believe it.
Wow.
I mean, why do you watch it? Why do you, we're only trying to help. All of us.
Excellent question.
Nobody's making money. Everyone's like, oh, everyone's making money in the UFO field. No. Greer's gotten money from people, but he's actually spent it on good things. He's not getting paid. This whole thing is a grassroots project by everyone around the world, disclosure folks.
It is. Yeah.
Yes, Hollywood's making money on it. Spielberg's making money, and maybe the Soul Foundation's making money on it. Let them. Let them, because money, you could throw billions at this. Billions won't change people's minds. Right. They won't change their paradigms. You need the component of transparency and truth and honesty and everything that goes along with that. You need, those are things that money can't buy.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't care what their budget is. Somebody told me, that they have access to all the money they want. So what? Yes, the disclosure movement could use, a little more grassroots money here and there, but it's not going to, you could throwing money at this problem, it really isn't going to solve anything. It's about personal exchange. You and I are doing this from the goodness of our hearts because we believe it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't, Mellon's always like, you're riding my coattails. You want to be famous. And I'm like,
wow,
where am I riding your coattails to?
Wow.
Hell and back. There's nobody in the disclosure movement is really famous. Dr. Greer's, nobody knows outside the community. Everyone knows the people that go to Contact in the Desert and MUFON and, the personalities. I don't want to go to those shows. I don't want to be a personality and sign. What am I don't want to do that.
You want Chris Mellon's fame, admit it.
No, I don't even care about Chris Mellon anymore.
I mean, what's amazing is that they even put him forward in that Age of Disclosure because he's one of the most uninspiring speakers on planet Earth.
That's what I'm saying. The boredom is going to kill them.
Wow.
Because let me see if I can put this in words. When you do something in life, give back to the world, do something pro bono, whatever, whenever you do something, the honesty and your heartfelt emotions come through clearly.
Right.
And with those guys, they get up there. I'm Hal Puthoff, and I saw something. You better believe me.
Oh yeah.
That, I'm Chris Mellon, and gosh, we better get to the bottom of this. And you better believe me. Their dishonesty comes through.
Wow, excellent point.
Like my wife's friend watched one of their films. Have you ever seen The Program? I didn't even know it existed.
Oh my God, yes.
Documentary on Netflix or something. Lee Keane gets up there and says, well, the human race can't handle the truth. And she says, are all these people like ex-government CIA? And we're like, yeah. My wife and I are like that. She goes, they're so boring and dull and
wow,
in your face and arrogant. And I said, yeah. So boring, in your face and arrogance, that's not a good show.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put on a show like Mickey Rooney, and Liza Minnelli, come on kids, we'll all put on a show, save the school or the church or whatever, something good. It's boring, and boring reflects their state of mind, which is,
wow,
we're only going to tell you this much. You don't deserve the rest. Your children, you don't deserve the truth. We know, we're the shepherds. We'll lead you the flock of sheep. We'll lead you. The arrogance, the dishonesty, the NDAs, all that stuff. It gives them an amalgam that's just doesn't taste very good.
Wow,
It's
incredible. Yeah,
if it's a school play, they're putting on a school play, but everyone's
excellent point.
Very few people stay and watch. It's just, and that's what in life you can only do so much skullduggery and fakery and disinformation and everything. It starts to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if Elizondo gets up there and cries, and part of him probably is genuine. He wants the truth out, but the rest of the people, they got the screws on him. Because he's just, he's lower down on the totem pole. And he probably does have some good intentions, but it comes through that they're like, well, I can't talk about that, but let me tell you about the bubblegum machine that we've invented for UFOs. Yeah, when they talk about nothing and they're like adults, boring adults, conservative, boring adults, telling their children, no, you don't deserve to know. This is for grown-ups only. Remember when you were a kid, how demeaning that was? This is for grown-ups because I said so. You're going to believe what I tell you to believe because I said so.
All right. This reveals who they are. Yeah.
Right. In my case, my dad lied to me, but he's a politician. And so as the growing process is all about learning.
He told you what he could,
parents,
right?
Yeah, the paranoid, the parents, they got wrong. God, lighten up a little bit, And it's helpful that you and I and Farrell and probably Catherine Fist, we have good senses of humor.
Oh yeah.
And I understand that's, not everyone has that. That's okay. I'm working on Eric Hecker.
You gotta cultivate it. Yeah.
He's great in private. He's funny as hell. But
yeah. I had a great time. I had a great time interviewing him.
He's full of shit. Don't listen to Eric Hecker. Listen to me. No, he's really funny. We get along really well, and we had a great time in DC together. He has a great girlfriend, Holly, and we wonderful time. It's getting to know people like that. Everything worthwhile in life is really, really hard. Emotionally, physically, everything. It's hard. Lessons are hard to learn. That's why they call them hard lessons.
Yes.
I mean, those of us have been through life, 63 years. I've been through divorce. I've been beat up. Almost died a million times. I mean, you learn these hard lessons. God, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? Because you needed to learn.
Incredible.
But getting officials up there going, just listen to us because we're officials. That's another definition of insanity.
That's really true. Yeah.
The boring adults getting the kids together, the naughty kids, the gutter kids. Sit down and listen. Because we said so. And you're like, when an adult told me that as a kid, and they're like, "Oh, listen to me because I said so," I was just like, "The hell with this! I'm going to go light firecrackers."
It's the rebel gene, right?
you've got to have that rebel gene. I think that people, and I think the disclosure movement is made up of a growing number of people with that gene.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And, we don't want to strangle the public and say, listen to us. It's just like, we're going to talk about the subject. If
Right.
you're interested, that's great. If you're not, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not like we have all the answers and we're always right. We're wrong a lot. I mean, it's just the law of averages, but we're really trying not to be.
Yes.
And the truth, that when you speak the truth, even if you get something wrong, oh, that flying saucer came from Venus, not Pluto. Oh, sorry. Even if you get something wrong, because you're trying to tell something truthful and benevolent and beneficial for everyone, I think that comes through. But
well, your books have brought forward a lot of these deep ideas, exotic technology, the Nazi programs, and you included John G. Trump in your last one. So now we're all looking forward to the new one that's coming up. John, how can people get in touch with you these days?
Just my website. It's John W. Warner IV author.com.
Yes, fantastic. And when do you suspect the fourth book is going to be out?
I don't know. I'm almost done. Well, 3/4 away done, and then I don't know, 6 months. I got to admit, I've been lazy and I'm doing other stuff.
It's just great to know that you're working.
Darn that World War III. Cutting into my writing time. Seriously.
Well, all the things that you're doing, think tanks and other things, very important.
Well, a lot of it's a bit of a downer. I mean, a lot of it just is depressing.
I can imagine.
When I'm down and depressed, I don't write well.
Interesting.
A little bit more.
Oh yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I have depression anyway, but it's just, some weeks I'm just deflated, and I can
appreciate it.
Shit. I mean, are we doomed?
Well, it's just good. It's good to have your voice back on all this. I can tell you that. My question for you, last question for this interview, is looking out to 2026. You've talked about World War III. You've talked about the UFO file. You've talked about the cover-up. You've talked about Age of Disclosure and the shenanigans of these groups. What do you see coming forward in 2026 in relation to all of those subjects?
I don't know. Predictions are haphazard. They're hazardous anyway. They never seem to really gel. But I think, generally speaking, there's more interest in disclosure.
Yes.
With people that were heretofore not interested in it, and all of a sudden really are, because they're like, what would stop Xi Putin and Kim Jong-il and all the other bad actors? And I'm like, a massive dose of reality.
Whoa, yeah.
Something to take people's minds out of the gutter, so to speak. The news is just full of crap. Every YouTube is just, Ireland is dead. Ireland is smoking in fire. I mean, it's all nonsense, and they don't give you accurate anything, and so people are confused. I hope the war in Ukraine stops, like everyone else, but I think going forward, 2027, Xi says he's going to invade Taiwan. I mean, he just told us.
Wow.
He says, I'm going to do it. Are you really going to stop me and start World War III? I mean, maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's the kind of thing where, but I do think in the amalgam of conflict, in chaos, there is the crucible of change. It's the way the cosmos works. You're not going to get a planet that's not come out of a primordial heat cycle of something. Stars birth other stars, nebulas and everything. I mean, in order for us to have clarity, disclosure on a variety of topics, our history, anthropology, everything, the crucible of conflict and war might create an unstable state of being where that can suddenly be possible.
Right.
And I don't really know exactly how that would look or come about, but it wouldn't hurt if the administration would come forth with a hardware show and a press conference and some diplomatic work, but those are just ideas on the drawing board. They're not very popular, but they're ideas. I hope so. My general feeling as a spiritual person, and I think a lot of ET star nations have a tremendous amount of investment in this planet and us.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll probably do everything they can and maybe a little bit more to prevent us from totally destroying ourselves. So I'm not worried that the Earth is going to crack in half and everyone's going to die. And, I don't know. That'll be the end of Earth. I think you've got a lot of players. Some of them are regressive, but most of them are positive, I think, I presume. They've got a lot of invested in planet Earth. It's a beautiful garden planet. Yes, we're a pain in the ass. Yes, we burn oil and fuel. We're a maniac. But those things can be corrected in a matter of a scant few years with technology. Oh, yeah,
Excellent
nuclear
point.
war,
Yeah.
that can all be fixed and reversed and cleaned up. The technology exists. And so I'm not really worried about that. But that sort of horrible period of that everyone talks about and the Mayans talk about and everything, there's going to be a reckoning of everything and everyone, and we're all going to go through some painful lessons. No pain, no gain. So I'm, bring it on. I want things to change because they can't keep going the way they have been. We can't keep poisoning the earth. We can't keep lying to everyone. We can't treat 95% of the public like 5-year-old children. You can't do that anymore. You can't have an elite with technology that's 10,000 years ahead of. It's an imbalance, and an imbalanced machine will explode.
Right.
People say, "Oh, the engine just blew up." Gee, I wonder why. It's not going to work for long. And I think people know that on all sides. Remember, we're dealing with a lot of factions of people. And they're beginning to realize that. They're like, well, I don't like all these people, but maybe they have a point. There's going to be a lot of hands clasping under the table. Don't have to like each other, but we all got to kind of cooperate. We're all in this together. I mean, people at meetings, they think, oh, well, I just want to do my thing. No. You live on this miserable planet with the rest of us. And they
Right.
think for a minute and they're like, oh, wow, I really do. I mean,
Wow. That is really true.
I have $1 trillion company and I want to make weapons. And it's like, well, you're creating your own knife to stab yourself, in a sense.
Exactly.
We need weapons, we need defense, but, we also need wisdom. The only way to get this wisdom that we desperately need is for the earth to grow up, evolve rather quickly.
Wow.
Because we don't have the luxury of time. Like that whole Jacques Vallée, Mellon, Elizondo thing, they've stated, we want a very structured disclosure over a long period of time. That's great in a perfect world. Guess what? We don't live in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Very dangerous, unstable world. They remind me of like my dad when he would answer a question like he was still living in 1955.
Wow.
I'm like, Dad, this is 2005. No, you can just put a carburetor on it and it'll run. Really? On a computer? Okay. They seem to be very old-fashioned.
Wow.
Old thinking, old-fashioned, conservative, hampered by NDAs and just not, everything. They're tied and their hands are handcuffed. And frankly, a lot of them seem like limited thinkers. Yes,
No
you can be a
question.
good scientist and, I'm a ufologist. Well, what have you done for ufology, Mr. Vallée? Not much.
Right.
Everyone says, oh, his radiation work is great. Okay, thank you for the radiation, figures. How's that going to help? It's impractical stuff. They concentrate on impractical, non-important topics. Oh, we have to get a UFO tracking organization. Well, what's ARROW? What's OSAP? What's, that list of acronyms? You can post that up there that I wrote. That's only a partial list. There's so many departments, playing paper football and goofing around. And, Arrow will do it, and it's just the old runaround. And it's like we're stabbing ourselves. We're all stabbing ourselves. Everyone thinks, my group of elites will rule the world. And it's like, well, you could do that in the old days, but not today.
Right.